Chapter 995. The man who walked out of the cave was Qinchuan, who had taken the heavenly heart pill. Hearing Tushan Nana say his name, Qinchuan was surprised. He didn't expect Tushan Nana to recognize him at first sight. "Do you know me?" Qinchuan was curious. Tushan Nana seemed to be very happy. Tushan Nana nodded hard and said to Qinchuan, "Of course I know you. I left the camp to find you." Hearing Tushan Nana's answer, Qinchuan was surprised and asked, "You came here to find me? Why?" "Because I want to be your disciple." By now, Tushan Nana had forgotten Qinchuan's prohibition. She walked quickly to Qinchuan and said to Qinchuan, "Take me as your disciple." Hearing Tushan Nana's words, Qinchuan felt a little dizzy. Why did a little girl suddenly jump out and want to be his disciple? There were so many powerful cultivators at the Dongshu stage in the Tushan family. Which one of them wasn't stronger than him? "If you want to be my disciple, at least find a powerful cultivator at the Dongshu stage. I'm at the peak of the Huashan stage, but I'm only a few stages higher than you. I can be your senior brother." Qinchuan smiled and said to Tushan Nana, "But before we talk about other things, you'd better prove your identities to me first." Although Tushan Nana and the other two looked like Tian people, he still had to be careful in case someone tried to trick him. Hearing this, Tushan Nana immediately put her ring in front of Qinchuan and matched it with Qinchuan's ring. Their information was immediately exchanged through the chip inside the ring. After checking Tushan Nana's information, Qinchuan was very surprised and said, "Your Uncle Yu's granddaughter?" Tushan Nana excitedly nodded, then grinned at Qinchuan and said, "Before I entered the historical site, my grandpa told me that if I ran into any danger outside I could find you." Qinchuan smiled and said to Tushan Nana, "Since your grandpa is the seventh patriarch, isn't it better for you to be his disciple?" "No way. Grandpa isn't as strong as you." Tushan Nana looked at Qinchuan with sparkling eyes and said, "You're the most powerful divinity transformation cultivator I've ever seen. I want to learn from you and become an invincible divinity transformation cultivator." Hearing Tushan Nana's words, Qinchuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If Tushan Yu heard Tushan Nana's words, he would probably cry himself to death in the toilet. "In my opinion, you should go back the way you came and move with the main force of the family. It's way too dangerous for you to stay with me." Qinchuan chuckled and said to Tushan Nana, "I have quite a lot of enemies." "I know. Isn't it those bastards from the Heavenly Federation?" "Master, I'll kill them with you." Tushan Nana waved her little fist and said to Qinchuan, "If we work together, we'll definitely be invincible." Looking at Tushan Nana's excited face, Qinchuan couldn't help but feel a headache. This little girl seemed to be too unreliable. He'd better send her back to the campsite of the Tushan family as soon as possible. If anything happened to her while she was with him, he wouldn't be able to explain it to Tushan Yu. "Nana, do you know where the main force of the family is right now?" Nana and the other two were the first group of Tushan family people that Qinchuan saw since they entered this ancient human ruin. He planned to ask where the main force of the Tushan family was, then escort Nana and the other two back to avoid any danger. Hearing this, Tushan Nana answered without hesitation, "The main force of the family is gathered near the Tower of Babel." "Tower of Babel? Coincidentally, I also want to take a look at the Tower of Babel." Qinchuan chuckled, "In that case, let's go to the Tower of Babel together." Calculating the time, he had spent nearly a month in seclusion this time. He had been in the ruins for nearly 50 days. It was time to go to the Tower of Babel to take a look at the situation and seek other opportunities. As for the matter of the Heavenly Federation, Qinchuan didn't care too much. Even if he faced a powerful cultivator at the Dongshu stage, he might still be able to fight. Under the Tower of Babel, people from various forces gathered together. They were all looking at the number of floors displayed on the tower with a subtle expression. "It's already the 40th floor." Tushan Lei's expression was solemn. The person who was challenging the Tower of Babel was the son of the governor of the great capital, Hai Junlan. He was at the peak of the divine transformation stage and had unparalleled combat strength. He could be said to be invincible in the divine transformation stage. Before Hai Junlan, many people had challenged the Tower of Babel. The person with the best result was the son of the president of the Heavenly Federation, Foot, who had reached the 35th floor. Hai Junlan was personally trained by the governor of the great capital, Hai Wudi. His strength is naturally stronger than others of the same level. Tushan Hao said in a deep voice, "Young clan leader is only at the peak of the divine transformation stage. It's normal for him to be defeated." Humph, Hai Junlan was personally trained by Hai Wudi. Isn't Chi personally trained by the clan leader? Why is he inferior to Hai Junlan? Tushan Lei snorted. Even if he is inferior to Hai Junlan, why can't he even beat Foot? He can't even pass the 34th floor? Hearing Tushan Lei's words, Tushan Hao felt a little helpless. He didn't know what to say. As the young clan leader of the Tushan clan, Tu Shanqi's performance was indeed not very good. It could be said that he had embarrassed the Tushan clan. Just as Tushan Lei and Tushan Hao were talking, Hai Junlan was finally sent out of the Tower of Babel. His final result was the 42nd floor. He's on the list. Quick look. Someone in the crowd exclaimed with shock, and all of them shot their gazes towards the soul transformation rankings on the heaven-piercing stone steel. Hai Junlan had passed through the 42nd level and was ranked 19th on the rankings. Moreover, the top 18 on the rankings were all humans from the primeval times. Just as everyone was paying attention to the divine transformation ranking, many people also turned to look at the substele. After passing the 42nd floor, Hai Junlan received a low-grade sacred artifact as his reward. Low-grade sacred artifact, the 8-directional flag. Judging from its name, it seems to be an offensive sacred artifact. Hearing the discussions of the crowd, Hai Junlan smiled and replied, "That's right. This 8-directional flag is indeed an offensive sacred artifact." After receiving Hai Junlan's personal response, the crowd immediately boiled over. No one thought that Hai Junlan would be so lucky to receive an offensive sacred artifact as a reward. However, rather than saying that Hai Junlan was lucky, it was more accurate to say that Hai Junlan was strong enough. After all, up until now, no one had been able to surpass Hai Junlan's results. Perhaps in the future, no one would be able to surpass Hai Junlan's results. Originally, everyone was still looking forward to a fierce battle between Hai Junlan and Tu Shanqi. However, Tu Shanqi's performance was truly unbearable. Chapter 996. Good. Very good. You are indeed the pride of our great prefecture. Ah. Hai Sang was very happy. Hai Junlan's performance had greatly exceeded his expectations. She had completely outshone the young talents of the other forces. Hai Junlan smiled at Hai Sang and replied, "I only have an advantage in terms of cultivation level. I'm sure the others will be able to achieve the same results after reaching the peak of the divine transformation stage." Hai Sang's smile became even brighter when he saw Hai Junlan being so humble. He glanced proudly at the gloomy Tu Shanlei and said to Hai Junlan, "Junlan, don't overestimate the others. Some people may not be able to perform half as well as you even if they receive the same treatment as you." Everyone's gaze subconsciously turned to the Tushan clan when they heard Hai Sang's words. Their gazes gathered on the ashen-faced Tu Shanqi. In terms of power, the great prefecture and the Tushan clan were equally matched. The resources used by the two forces to cultivate their respective successors were almost the same. However, Tu Shanqi's performance was far inferior to Hai Junlan's. He was even inferior to Fu Te of the Heavenly Federation. This was somewhat unreasonable. Faced with Hai Sang's ridicule, Tu Shanlei snorted coldly and said, "This is just a temporary comparison. There's still a long way to go. Chi may be able to surpass us. Ha ha ha, Tu Shanlei, you're just being stubborn. Hai Sang laughed and said to Tu Shanlei, if it weren't for the fact that the Tower of Babel didn't open the path for Dongshu stage cultivators, I would definitely compete with you to see who's better. Tu Shanlei immediately retorted angrily, do you think I'm afraid of you? Everyone watched the quarrel between Tu Shanlei and Hai Sang with a playful smile on their faces. Once these two forces met, it would be like lightning striking the earth. No one would submit to the other. However, just as Hai Sang said, Tu Shanlei was just being stubborn. So what if Tu Shanlei could surpass Hai Sang on the Dongshu stage list? This didn't change the fact that Tu Shanqi was inferior to Hai Junlan. Just as everyone was watching the show, Hai Junlan bowed to Tu Shanlei and said with a smile, Seniors, there's no need to quarrel over such a small matter. Although Brother Chi's current performance isn't good, I believe that once Brother Chi breaks through to the peak soul formation stage, he will definitely be able to catch up to me. When everyone heard Hai Junlan's words, their expressions suddenly became strange. Hai Junlan's Brother Chi sounded intimate, but in reality, she was ruthlessly mocking Tu Shanqi. After all, Tu Shanqi was 10 years older than Hai Junlan. Tu Shanqi was 10 years older than Hai Junlan, but her performance was so much worse than Hai Junlan's. What a shame! As expected, after hearing Hai Junlan's seemingly humble words, Tu Shanlei became even angrier. He couldn't help but glare at Tu Shanqi and curse, you're such a disappointment. You're a disgrace to the Tu Shan family. Facing Tu Shanlei's scolding, Tu Shanqi felt wronged, but there was nothing he could do. He was not as good as Tu Shanlei, so whatever he said now would be wrong. Right at this moment, there was a burst of excited cheers from outside the crowd, which attracted everyone's attention. Wow, why are there so many people here? What are you all looking at? A delicate figure descended from the sky and landed in front of the Tower of Babel. She looked around curiously as if she was looking for something. Soon, her eyes fell on Tu Shanlei and she shouted happily, "Third Grandpa." Hearing this, the anger on Tu Shanlei's face faded a little. He forced a smile and said, "Nana, where have you been these days?" Hearing this, Tu Shan Nana immediately replied excitedly, "I went to find my teacher." "Teacher?" Tu Shanlei was slightly surprised and asked, "Which teacher?" "Teacher Qin." Tu Shan Nana said to Tu Shanlei, "Teacher Qin Chuan Qin, who is invincible in the divine transformation realm." Hearing Tu Shan Nana's words, a subtle expression appeared on the faces of the surrounding people. They subconsciously looked at the people of the Heavenly Travel Union. Some time ago, Qin Chuan was in the limelight because of the conflict between him and the Heavenly Travel Union. Originally, with Qin Chuan's silence for nearly a month, people had gradually ignored him. They didn't expect him to jump out now. Moreover, there were people who praised Hai Junlan as invincible in the divine transformation realm. Now, there was another invincible in the divine transformation realm. They just didn't know who was the real invincible. Tu Shanlei. Before, you told me that Qin Chuan has nothing to do with your Tu Shan family. Now, your seventh elder's daughter is calling Qin Chuan teacher. How are you going to explain this? Jit walked out of the crowd and looked straight at Tu Shanlei. Today, you have to give me an explanation. Facing Jit's questioning, Tu Shanlei snorted coldly and said, "When did I say that Qin Chuan has nothing to do with my Tu Shan family? Qin Chuan has always been a member of our Tu Shan family. You people of the Heavenly Travel Union can't bully the young, but you want to bully me, the old one? You're going too far." Jit was furious. Do you people of the Tu Shan family really think that the Heavenly Travel Union is easy to bully? Tu Shanlei didn't back down. He said angrily, "So what if we bully you?" The Tu Shan family could restrain themselves when facing the Metropolis Prefecture, but there was no need to do so when facing the Heavenly Travel Union. "Third Grandpa, mind your manners." Tu Shan Nana looked at Tu Shanlei and said helplessly, "You're the third elder of our Tu Shan family. You're making a scene and making a fool of yourself. Tushan Lei heard Tushan Nana's words and the corner of his mouth twitched. His face darkened. Usually, he was a person who paid attention to his manners. But today, he was really angry. Hai Sang mocked him because of Hai Junlin's outstanding performance. Now, even Jit wanted to ride on his head. If he could tolerate this, what could he tolerate? In the distance, Qin Chuan hid in the clouds and watched the farce below the Tower of Babel. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In his impression, shouldn't Dongshu stage cultivators be self-conscious and disdainful of quarreling with each other? Why did he feel that Tushan Lei's saliva was about to fly to Jit's face? What's the use of quarreling? Start fighting! Qin Chuan was probably the kind of person who liked to watch a good show. But soon, Qin Chuan realized that the excitement had shifted from Tushan Lei to him. Tushan Nana suddenly turned her head and looked in his direction. She waved her hand and shouted, "Teacher, what are you doing over there? Come down quickly!" Everyone noticed Tushan Nana's actions and subconsciously looked in Qin Chuan's direction. For a moment, Qin Chuan replaced Tushan Lei as the focus of everyone's attention. Chapter 997. Facing everyone's gazes, Qin Chuan couldn't help but feel a headache. He thought he could hide in the dark and watch the show. Not only did Tushan Nana make people hate him, she even pointed out his location. Wasn't this a trap? This little girl is really a headache. If I really take her as my disciple, I'm afraid I'll be killed. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, Jit had already roared and attacked him. "Shameless thief, give me back my heavenly Luo umbrella." While roaring, Jit raised his hand and waved his palm. A terrifying spiritual power attacked Qin Chuan like a hurricane, crushing the clouds in the sky. Facing this sudden attack launched by Jit, Qin Chuan's body flashed across the air, barely escaping from the coverage of Jit's power vibration. He quickly landed in the group of Tushan family people, stood behind Tushan Lei and yelled out, "Third Elder, this guy is so cruel. He's a powerful Dongshu stage cultivator, but he attacked me, a junior, so viciously." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Tushan Lei snorted and said, "Don't worry, you're a member of the Tushan family. I won't leave you in the lurch." Before entering the relic, the Tushan family had clearly told Qin Chuan that if Qin Chuan took the initiative to cause trouble, the Tushan family would have to reconsider whether to help or not. However, if the trouble wasn't caused by Qin Chuan, the Tushan family would definitely protect Qin Chuan. After a period of investigation, Tushan Lei had confirmed that the Heavenly Travel Union was the one who bullied Qin Chuan first. Therefore, it wasn't Qin Chuan who took the initiative to cause trouble. According to the agreement, the Tushan family had to protect Qin Chuan. Otherwise, they would break their promise. "Jit, you attacked a member of the Tushan family in front of me. Do you really think the Tushan family is easy to bully?" Tushan Lei stared at Jit with a dark look and said, "A Dongshu stage cultivator dares to bully a semi-god stage junior. Semi-god stage junior? How shameless!" Tushan Lei was astonished to hear this. He clearly remembered that Qin Chuan was only at the mid-soul formation stage before they entered the ruins. How did he reach the peak soul formation stage in such a short time? Tushan Lei was not the only one who was surprised. Tushan Hao was also very curious about what Qin Chuan had experienced during this period of time. How could he walk on a path that others might not even be able to walk on in tens of years? Tushan Lei, Ijite will say it right here. I can let bygones be bygones, but he must return the heavenly Luo umbrella to me. Jit knew that it would be very difficult for him to attack Qin Chuan when Tushan family was supporting Qin Chuan. But it was absolutely impossible for him to give up the heavenly Luo umbrella. If Qin Chuan refused to hand over the Tian Luo umbrella, then he could only fight with Tushan Lei. Humph. Your own people lost the heavenly Luo umbrella because they didn't have the ability. What does that have to do with Qin Chuan? Tushan Lei sneered and said, If you really want to take back the heavenly Luo umbrella, then send your semi-god stage cultivators to fight with Qinchuan. I won't do anything to stop you. You've gone too far. Jit was furious. Qinchuan was very strong. Even Moses, who had the heavenly Luo umbrella, was not Qinchuan's opponent. Even if the semi-god stage cultivators of the heavenly Luo alliance were to fight together, they might not be able to gain any advantage. Tushan Lei's words clearly showed that he did not want to return the heavenly Luo umbrella. Just when Jit was furious, Foot suddenly stepped forward and said to him, "Uncle, let me deal with this Qinchuan. If I don't stand up at this time, others will think that there is no one in the younger generation of the heavenly Luo alliance." Foot was the son of the heavenly Luo alliance's president. He was only 120 years old this year, and could be considered part of the younger generation. His realm was also at the peak of the semi-god stage. It was very suitable for him to represent the heavenly Luo alliance to fight with Qinchuan. For a moment, everyone's faces showed a touch of curiosity. They wanted to borrow Foot's hands to see how strong Qinchuan, who was known as the invincible semi-god stage cultivator, was. Hearing Foot's words, Jit couldn't help but show a touch of hesitation. With Foot's strength, he might not be able to defeat Moses, who had the heavenly Luo umbrella. Now that Moses was dead, if Foot had any accident in Qinchuan's hands, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to explain it to his elder brother. Just when Jit was hesitating, Qinchuan suddenly said loudly, "I have never liked to compare notes. Once we fight, it will be a life-and-death battle." Hearing Qinchuan's words, Jit's expression changed slightly. Before he had time to speak, Foot had already stepped forward and responded, "It's better to fight to the death." Hearing this, Jit hurriedly said, "Foot, Uncle, you don't have to persuade me anymore. I have already made up my mind. Today, I must kill this boy to restore the reputation of the heavenly Luo alliance." Foot looked at Qinchuan with a sharp gaze, his killing intent surging. Seeing this, Jit could only sigh helplessly and stop persuading Foot. Now, he could only hope that Foot really had the strength to kill Qinchuan. Otherwise, when the time came, even if the reputation of the heavenly Luo alliance was damaged again, he would still save Foot. On the other side, Tu Shanlei saw that Qinchuan and Foot had decided on this life-and-death battle with just a few words. He couldn't help but frown slightly and ask Qinchuan, "Are you confident?" Qinchuan chuckled and asked Tu Shanlei, "I just want to know what the consequences will be if I kill Foot." Hearing Qinchuan's words, Tu Shanlei's expression immediately became serious. He said seriously, "If you really have the ability, then even if the president of the Heavenly Luo Alliance personally comes, my Tushan clan will definitely block him for you and ensure your safety." Hearing Tu Shanlei's answer, Qinchuan laughed, "Then, I'm relieved." As they spoke, Qinchuan had already walked to the open space in front of them. He said to Tu Shanlei, "The terrain here is too narrow. Let's go to the sky. Since I was the one who decided on this life-and-death battle, then the rules of the battle will be set by you." Hearing Qinchuan's words, Foot snorted coldly and said, "There are no rules. In the battle, other than not allowing outsiders to help, you can use whatever means you want." "Haha, I like this rule." Qinchuan tapped his feet lightly and his figure shot straight into the sky. Foot immediately followed after seeing this. Hai Sang looked at Qinchuan and Foot in the sky and whispered to Hai Junlan beside him, "Who do you think will win?" Hai Junlan took a deep look at Qinchuan and said to Hai Sang, "Qinchuan has a higher chance of winning, but it might be difficult for him to kill Foot." Hearing Hai Junlan's words, Hai Sang asked again, "What if you face Qinchuan?" Hai Junlan replied confidently, "I will definitely kill him within 10 moves. Chapter 998. Although Foot felt confident that he could kill Qinchuan, he did not let his guard down. Instead, he became more vigilant. "Qinchuan, prepare to die!" Foot roared. His spiritual energy surged and swept toward Qinchuan like a storm. Facing Foot's attack, Qinchuan did not resist or even fight back. Instead, he chose to dodge. His body moved 1,000 meters to one side in an instant, dodging Foot's attack. Foot attacked again and again, but Qinchuan dodged again and again. It seemed that he had no intention of fighting Foot head-on. Seeing this, Foot immediately flew into a rage. Qinchuan, didn't you want to fight me to the death? You keep dodging like this. Are you trying to kill me with your lifespan? Hearing Foot's shout, Qinchuan grinned and said, Don't worry, okay? I'm preparing a big move. When the time comes, I'll kill you in one move. Hearing Qinchuan's response, Foot roared and launched a crazy attack toward Qinchuan again. His spiritual energy seemed to be endless, pouring toward Qinchuan. However, Qinchuan still had no intention of fighting back. He was still dodging. In the sky, Foot attacked and Qinchuan dodged. The seemingly fierce fight was actually just Foot shooting empty cannons. Seeing this scene, everyone did not know whether to laugh or cry. What happened to the wonderful fight? It was so boring. What is Qinchuan doing? Tushanlei looked at Qinchuan in confusion. He did not understand why Qinchuan did not fight back. Was he deliberately disgusting Foot? Facing Tushanlei's question, Tushanhao shook his head and responded, I don't know what Qinchuan is doing either. Maybe it's just as he said, he's preparing some kind of big move. But he's taking way too long to prepare. Others did not understand what Qinchuan was doing, but Tushan Nana was like a loyal fan of Qinchuan. She kept cheering for Qinchuan. She firmly believed that Qinchuan could defeat Foot and win this battle. On the other side, Hai Sang was also puzzled. He had fought countless people in his life, but this was the first time he saw Qinchuan fighting in such a strange way. Qinchuan has been deliberately stalling for time. He must be up to something. Hai Junlan nodded and said, He is indeed stalling for time, but I don't think he is preparing a big move. He is waiting for something. Waiting for what? Hai Sang frowned slightly. Could it be that Qinchuan was waiting for Foot to commit suicide? That was a little too ridiculous. Not only did the crowd find this battle boring, even Foot, one of the participants, felt that he was very stupid right now. He was like a fool who was fighting against the air, or a mentally ill person who was not normal at all. Bastard, I have no interest in playing with you anymore. Finally, Foot stopped attacking. He did not want to continue playing this boring game with Qinchuan. He wanted to kill Qinchuan directly. Buzz. A long spear slowly appeared in Foot's hand. The spear was covered in blood and emitted an extremely strong smell of blood. Its power was astonishing. The moment the spear appeared in Foot's hand, many people immediately recognized what it was. It was the Heavenly Federation's president, Fu Ya's famous saint artifact, the blood-drinking spear. For a moment, the crowd cried out in surprise. It's the blood-drinking spear. Fu Ya actually gave it to Foot. No wonder Foot was so confident that he could kill Qinchuan. Tushanlei's face was gloomy. The blood-drinking spear was Fu Ya's famous sacred weapon. Although it was only a low-grade sacred weapon, it was a sacred weapon with extremely strong offensive power. It was not inferior to some mid-grade sacred weapons. It was quite famous in Tron Nebula. With the help of the blood-drinking spear, Qinchuan would not be able to block it even with the Tian Luo umbrella. Qinchuan is in danger now. Does he have a sure kill move? Tushanhao looked at Qinchuan with a grave expression. If Qinchuan was just deliberately mystifying before, then this time, Qinchuan would have to pay the price for his arrogance. Kit, who was still worried about Foot, immediately laughed when he saw the blood-drinking spear appear. He said proudly, with the blood-drinking spear in hand, Foot is in an invincible position. Qinchuan is doomed. Hearing Kit's laughter, Hai Sang also nodded in agreement. With the offensive power of the blood-drinking spear, Qinchuan, who was only at the peak of the divine transformation realm, would definitely not be able to block it. I didn't expect Foot to have such a killer move hidden. It's a pity for Qinchuan. Hai Junlan felt a little regretful. She originally wanted to compete with Qinchuan, but now it seemed that he would not have that chance. Just as everyone was shocked by the appearance of the blood-drinking spear, Qinchuan also realized that things were not going well. He looked deeply at Foot, then looked up at the sky and said in a deep voice, "We can't wait any longer. Come." Qinchuan roared to the sky, and the clear sky immediately turned pitch black. Dark clouds rolled and thunder suddenly appeared. This sudden change caused everyone's expression to change slightly. This was a lightning tribulation? Qinchuan actually triggered a lightning tribulation at this critical moment? Ha ha, the heavens really want you dead. Foot immediately laughed when he saw Qinchuan trigger the lightning tribulation. The lightning tribulation descending at this time is really too clever. Hearing Foot's wild laughter, Qinchuan's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. He said in a cold voice, "I really hope you can still laugh later." "Why can't I laugh?" Foot, who was originally going to attack Qinchuan with the blood-drinking spear, was no longer in a hurry. He wanted to first watch Qinchuan suffer under the lightning tribulation, and then wait for the lightning tribulation to dissipate before giving Qinchuan a fatal blow. Perhaps he did not need to do anything. The lightning tribulation alone could kill Qinchuan in an instant. Thinking of this, Foot could not help but smile widely. Rumble! Thunder rumbled as lightning illuminated the entire sky. The lightning tribulation, which had accumulated its power to the limit, was finally unable to hold itself back. With a loud bang, it descended and charged straight towards Qinchuan. When the lightning tribulation hit Qinchuan, Qinchuan suddenly raised his hand and slapped at Foot. The extreme destructive power contained in the lightning tribulation surged out of Qinchuan's palm and arrived in front of Foot in the blink of an eye, hitting the defenseless Foot. Ah! When the destructive power of the lightning tribulation entered his body, Foot's face immediately became extremely ferocious, and he screamed in pain. However, this was just the beginning. As the lightning tribulation continued to fall, Qinchuan kept separating the destructive power from the nourishing power of the lightning tribulation, attacking Foot with the destructive power of the lightning tribulation. In a short moment, Foot's body and soul were on the verge of collapse. This scene completely stunned everyone who was watching the battle. Chapter 999. When he saw the tribulation clouds gathering in the sky, Tushan Lei had already guessed Qinchuan's intention. But when he saw Qinchuan controlling the power of tribulation lightning to attack Foot with his own eyes, he was still shocked. Not only did Qinchuan have the ability to help others transcend tribulation, but he also had the ability to control the power of tribulation lightning to attack enemies. We should have guessed it long ago. He suddenly broke through to the peak of the apotheosis realm from the middle stage of the apotheosis realm, so he must have transcended a minor tribulation. But we didn't expect him to be able to suppress the appearance of the minor tribulation until now. Tushan Hao looked at Qinchuan, who was like a god of war, with a complicated look in his eyes. He whispered, "Is the law of thunder more powerful than the law of space?" Tushan Hao didn't know about other aspects, but when it came to transcending tribulations, he dared to say that the law of thunder was definitely the strongest. I'm glad that we didn't give up on him because of the enmity between him and the Heavenly Travel Union. Tushan Lei took a deep look at Qinchuan, then turned his eyes to Tushan Nana, who was standing to the side with a face full of admiration. He whispered, "It's a good thing that Nana has Qinchuan as her master." While Tushan Lei and Tushan Hao were shocked by Qinchuan's performance, Jit was completely dumbfounded. He had transcended tribulations many times in his life, and had seen others transcend tribulations countless times, but he had never seen anyone who could control the power of tribulation lightning as a means of attack. Qinchuan's performance was too heaven-defying. Such heaven-defying means, he Hai Sang looked at Qin Chuan in shock and cried out involuntarily, "How on earth did he do it?" Hai Junlan stared fixedly at Qin Chuan, her eyes filled with disbelief. Even she wouldn't be able to remain unscathed under the lightning tribulation, let alone control the power of the lightning tribulation. However, Qin Chuan just happened to possess such a unique ability. He was simply a monster. Just as everyone was in disbelief over Qin Chuan's methods, Jit was the first to come back to his senses. His expression suddenly became extremely ferocious. If he allowed Qin Chuan to continue attacking Foot with the power of the tribulation lightning, then Foot would definitely die. He had to save Foot. Thinking of this, Jit immediately flew into the air and arrived beside Foot in the blink of an eye. He wanted to save Foot, but at this moment, a bolt of tribulation lightning suddenly changed direction under Qin Chuan's control and blasted toward Jit. Damn it! Seeing this, Jit turned pale with fright and hurriedly dodged. However, the speed of the lightning tribulation was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived and struck Jit's chest. Puff! Facing the attack of the lightning tribulation, Ji-tae spat out a mouthful of blood, and his expression became extremely ugly. Fortunately, this lightning tribulation was only at the spirit-severing stage. Although it was powerful, it wasn't fatal to a Dongshu stage cultivator. Otherwise, he wouldn't have ended up any better than Fu Te. Qin Chuan, do you really want to kill me? Jit roared. If Qin Chuan wasn't willing to stop, he wouldn't be able to save Foot under the interference of the lightning tribulation. When Qin Chuan heard Jit's roar, he sneered and said, "As long as you give me the heavenly Luo umbrella and the blood-drinking spear as an apology in front of everyone present, then I will let Foot go. Otherwise, rumble." Qin Chuan didn't finish his words. He raised his hand and blasted the lightning tribulation lightning into the ground. The ground immediately shattered and exploded with a rumbling sound. Facing Qin Chuan's threat, Jit was really angry and aggrieved. If it weren't for the existence of the lightning tribulation lightning, he could have killed Qin Chuan with one palm. But now, in order to save Foot's life, he had no choice but to agree to Qin Chuan's conditions. "Okay. As long as you let Foot go, I will give you the heavenly Luo umbrella and the blood-drinking spear as an apology in the name of the Heavenly Luo Union's vice president." When he said this, Jit's heart was bleeding. The blood-drinking spear and the heavenly Luo umbrella, one for offense and one for defense, were the Heavenly Luo Union's signature weapons. Now, this signature weapon had fallen into Qin Chuan's hands so easily. This was simply a great humiliation to him. Hearing Jit's words, Qin Chuan grinned. He raised his hand and took back the blood-drinking spear. He used his mental strength to forcefully erase the spiritual imprint on the blood-drinking spear. Then, he put away the blood-drinking spear and said to Jit, "You can take him and get lost." In the face of Qin Chuan's humiliation, Jit almost ground his teeth to pieces. He quickly came to Foot's side and gave him a bottle of life-saving medicine. Then, he carried Foot and quickly flew away. He wanted to find a quiet place to heal Foot's injuries. After Jit and Foot left, Qin Chuan began to peacefully undergo the tribulation. He passed the last 3 lightning tribulations. When the tribulation clouds in the sky dissipated, the sky became clear again. Everyone looked at Qin Chuan, who was slowly descending from the sky, with extremely complicated expressions on their faces. Today's events had brought them great shock. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would never have believed that there was someone in this world who could control the lightning tribulations. With the help of the lightning tribulations, he could force the almighty Dongshu stage cultivator to hand over 2 sacred tools. After today, Qin Chuan's name would definitely resound throughout Tron Nebula, and he would become a legend. Seeing Qin Chuan come closer, Tu Shanlei smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "You really surprised us today." Qin Chuan grinned and replied, "Actually, I couldn't hold on at that time. I was just deliberately deceiving Jit." If he continued to argue with me, I might have exposed myself. Tu Shanlei didn't believe Qinchuan's words at all. This guy clearly looked like a dragon and a tiger. How did he look like he couldn't hold on at all? In fact, Qinchuan didn't deceive Tu Shanlei. He couldn't hold on, not because he couldn't continue to control the lightning tribulations, but because he was about to be stuffed to death by the power of the lightning tribulations. In the first 6 lightning tribulations, Qinchuan wasn't attacked by the destructive power at all. He had been absorbing the power of the lightning tribulations, which caused his body to be full of extremely pure power. If this continued, he would definitely be stuffed to death. Therefore, he had to use the destructive power of the lightning tribulations to neutralize the power of the lightning tribulations. Otherwise, even if he didn't die, he would be in big trouble. Fortunately, Jit didn't understand the situation at all. In order to protect Foot, he agreed to his conditions very straightforwardly. Originally, Qinchuan wanted to add a condition that forbade Jit from taking revenge on him after the event. However, in order to prevent Jit from arguing, he didn't add this condition. After absorbing the power of the lightning tribulations, Qinchuan felt that he wasn't far from the peak of the divine transformation stage. If others knew that Qinchuan was going to jump 3 levels in a short month from the middle of the divine transformation stage to the peak of the divine transformation stage, it would probably cause a sensation in Tron Nebula. Tron Nebula had existed for countless years, but there had never been a monster like Qinchuan. Chapter 1000. Qinchuan, what happened today has exposed the fact that you can control the Thunder Trial. From now on, you have to be extra careful when you go out. Tu Shanhao looked at Qinchuan seriously. Based on what happened today, Qinchuan's value was far more than just controlling the Thunder Trial. The Tushan family had already established a good relationship with Qinchuan. If Qinchuan was targeted by some people because of what he did today, it might cause a lot of trouble for the Tushan family. Hearing Tu Shanhao, Qinchuan seriously nodded and responded, "Thank you, 4th Elder, for reminding me. I will keep that in mind." In fact, even without Tu Shanhao's reminder, Qinchuan would be more careful. After all, he was only at the divinity realm. Facing an opponent at the early stage of the Dongshu realm, he might have a chance to escape, but facing an opponent at the middle stage of the Dongshu realm, he would probably die. "Shifu, you were so cool just now." Tushan Nana came over and said to Qinchuan excitedly, "You looked like a thunder god just now. Cool, domineering, and handsome." Hearing Tushan Nana's words, Qinchuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Thunder God is too tacky, isn't it? In fact, I've already thought of a title for myself. I'll call myself Thunder Dominator. But with my current power, I don't think I deserve such a title. Let's talk about it later. Hearing this, Tushan Nana curled her lips and said, "Thunder Dominator is tacky too, okay?" Qinchuan chuckled and didn't continue arguing with Tushan Nana. Instead, he turned around and looked at the cyan-colored stone tower not far away and asked, "Is this the Tower of Babel?" Tushan Lei nodded and said, "Yes, this is the Tower of Babel. You haven't tried this tower yet, have you? Do you want to give it a try?" Qinchuan responded, "I came here to try this Tower of Babel. In fact, I'm very interested in this tower. I want to know how many floors I can pass. But, how many people have passed this tower? What's the best result?" Hearing Qinchuan's question, Tu Shanlei answered, "Nowadays, the Tower of Babel is not open to cultivators above the Dongshu stage. Only cultivators of the Huashan stage can enter. The best result is the 42nd floor, and the challenger is the Great Prefecture's young lord, Hai Junlan." While speaking, Tushan Lei pointed at Hai Junlan, who was standing not far away, and said to Qinchuan, "She is Hai Junlan." Qinchuan turned his head and looked at Hai Junlan, following Tu Shanlei's finger. Hai Junlan noticed Qinchuan's gaze and smiled. She cupped her hands towards Qinchuan, greeting him for the first time. Qin Chuan returned her greeting with a smile and a slight nod. This guy looks elegant and handsome, like a gentleman. However, I think he's a hypocrite. Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said indifferently, this kind of person can't be too close. Hearing Qin Chuan's evaluation of Hai Junlan, Tu Shanlei nodded. Just as he was about to speak, Tu Shanqi, who was standing to the side, spoke first. That's right. That guy is a hypocrite, very hypocrite. Qin Chuan looked at Tu Shanqi curiously. Who is this guy? He actually dared to speak before Tu Shanlei. Facing Qin Chuan's doubts, Tu Shanqi smiled at Qin Chuan and introduced herself. I'm Tu Shanqi. My father is Tu Shanying. So it's the young patriarch. Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Tu Shanqi, I didn't recognize you earlier. Sorry for my lack of respect. Brother Qin, you don't have to be so polite with me. I've seen what you did earlier. I admire you very much. Tu Shanqi smiled and said to Qin Chuan, I think if there's anyone who can suppress Hai Junlan's momentum, it's you, Brother Qin. Facing Tu Shanqi's flattery, Qin Chuan shook his head and responded, Before I try, I can't say how confident I am. Seeing Qin Chuan being so humble and not being arrogant because of his previous prestige, Tu Shanlei couldn't help but show a trace of admiration in his eyes. He sighed in his heart. If Qi could have the same mentality and willpower as Qin Chuan, she wouldn't be so mediocre. While Qin Chuan was chatting with the Tushan family people, Hai Junlan slowly walked over and said to Qin Chuan, Brother Qin, I'm Hai Junlan. When Qin Chuan heard this, he turned his head and looked at Hai Junlan. He chuckled and replied, So it's Brother Hai. I'm handsome, elegant, and elegant. I'm the combination of wisdom and handsomeness. I'm the embodiment of heroes and chivalrous heroes. I'm loved by everyone, and I'm known as the Qin Chuan of 900 million girls' dreams. Hai Junlan, Tushan family people, onlookers. They had seen shameless people before, but it was the first time for them to see someone as shameless as Qin Chuan. How could anyone be so shameless as to praise himself? Hai Junlan's mouth corners twitched as she said to Qin Chuan, Brother Qin, you're so funny. You're flattering me. Qin Chuan said modestly, I just like to speak the truth. After all, changing the atmosphere of the universe, improving the self-restraint of young people, and improving the quality of the people still require a lot of effort from me. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Hai Junlan felt that she couldn't continue the conversation with Qin Chuan. This guy was too disgusting. Brother Qin, do you want to challenge the tower? Hai Junlan changed the topic. How many levels do you think you can reach? Qin Chuan sighed and said, It's a pity that this tower only has 99 levels. Otherwise, I think I should be able to reach the 110th level. I'll take my leave. Hearing Qin Chuan sigh, Hai Junlan turned around and left. She felt that she couldn't hold it in any longer. If she continued to talk to Qin Chuan like this, she would definitely not be able to hold it in and beat Qin Chuan up. Qin Chuan looked at Hai Junlan's departing figure and grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. I was just telling the truth. Why did she leave just like that? Young people nowadays are too fickle. They only like to listen to false flattery and don't want to listen to a few words of truth. As the saying goes, bitter medicine cures the illness, and honest words are unpleasant to the ear but beneficial to the action. Before Qin Chuan could finish speaking, Hai Junlan had already left like a gust of wind. Qin Chuan's ability to sound into one's ears was even more terrifying than his ability to control the power of the lightning tribulation. Seeing Hai Junlan running away, Qin Chuan smiled and turned to look at the people of the Tushan clan. At this moment, he realized that the people of the Tushan clan had already retreated 100 meters away. They all had strange expressions on their faces, as if they didn't want to stay with him. What are you all doing? Don't tell me you're going to ostracize this handsome, suave, romantic, and elegant man. Stop, stop, stop. Tushan Chi had a helpless expression. Brother Qin, please spare us. Your ability to brag about yourself is truly the best in the universe. Qin Chuan laughed and said to Tushan Chi, I just saw that Hai Junlan wanted to ask about me, so I purposely disgusted her. Chapter 1001. Everyone else didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Qin Chuan's words, but Tushan Nana said to Qin Chuan excitedly, Master, I think the title of 900 Million Girls' Dream is good, but why is it 900 Million Girls' Dream? Isn't it 9 billion girls' dream? Based on the population, there were at least 100 billion people in the Trump star cloud. If half of them were girls, 900 million was really too little. Looking at Tushan Nana's serious face, Qin Chuan said helplessly, Don't worry about these details. After responding to Tushan Nana, Qin Chuan turned to look at Tushan Chi and asked curiously, What kind of levels are in the Tower of Babel? Actually, the levels are not complicated. They are even a little simple. There will be an opponent on every level. As long as you defeat this opponent, you can go to the next level. Tushan Chi said to Qin Chuan, As you go higher, your opponents will become stronger and have more skills. You will have less time to pass the levels. Hearing Tushan Chi's words, Qin Chuan nodded and asked, Is the opponent's strength fixed, or does it change according to the challenger's strength? The opponent's strength is fixed. It won't change because of your strength. Tushan Chi said to Qin Chuan, But there is one thing worth noting. Every 10 levels, your opponent will be a big level stronger. I see. Qin Chuan said with a smile, If there is nothing else to pay attention to, I will go to the next level. Tushan Chi asked Qin Chuan in surprise, Brother Qin, don't you need to adjust your state? After all, you have just passed the lightning tribulation. Qin Chuan laughed and said to Tushan Chi, That's not necessary. I am in great condition now. While talking, Qin Chuan had already walked to the Tower of Babel. He pushed open the door and stepped in. Everyone was curious when they saw Qin Chuan enter the Tower of Babel. They wanted to see how far Qin Chuan could go. The environment in the Tower of Babel was much simpler than Qin Chuan had imagined. There was nothing except for a huge training field. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, an illusory figure slowly appeared in front of him. The figure said to Qin Chuan, The first level of the Tower of Babel will begin in 3 minutes. Hearing the words of the illusory figure, Qin Chuan couldn't help but be curious. This should be the opponent he was going to deal with. Judging from the aura, he should be at the early stage of the apotheosis realm. He wasn't strong, even a little weak. 3 minutes quickly passed. When the illusory figure began to attack, Qin Chuan did not rush to immediately let the figure enter the next stage. Instead, he patiently probed the illusory figure's strength. After confirming that there was nothing special about the illusory figure, he casually smashed the illusory figure into pieces with a palm strike. Congratulations on passing the first level. Because you are a human, you have the right to open the hidden reward channel. Would you like to open it? Hearing the mechanical voice, Qin Chuan was a little surprised. This Tower of Babel could detect the identity of a human? And what was this hidden reward channel? Will my identity as a human be exposed? This was what Qin Chuan was most concerned about. There were countless people outside the Tower of Babel watching him. If his identity as a human was exposed, he would be in danger. He didn't know if he would get a response from the Tower of Babel, but he still wanted to try. You can choose to hide or disclose this information. After receiving a response from the Tower of Babel, Qin Chuan let out a long sigh of relief and replied, I choose to hide it. No one is allowed to inquire about this information. This information has been hidden. Please rest assured. Hearing this, Qin Chuan asked curiously, What is the hidden reward channel? The Tower of Babel will compress the 99 floors of the Tower of Babel into 50 floors based on your strength. For every floor you pass, You will receive a hidden reward equal to the rewards of others for passing 10 floors. Hearing the introduction of the Tower of Babel, Qinchuan's eyes lit up and he asked, I think this is very good. Then let's open the hidden reward channel. Following Qinchuan's command, the Tower of Babel immediately began to adjust the levels for Qinchuan, from ordinary levels to hidden levels. The adjustment has been completed. Please enter the second floor. Outside the Tower of Babel, everyone looked at Qinchuan, who had been staying on the first floor, and felt very curious. The opponent on the first floor was only an early-stage soul formation opponent. Why was Qinchuan taking so long? Strange, what is Qinchuan doing? Tu Shanqi was very puzzled. He can't not be unable to pass the first level. Don't talk nonsense. Maybe he is just doing some special probing. Tu Shanlei said to Tu Shanqi, after the probing is over, he will naturally deal with his opponent and enter the next level. Just as Tu Shanlei said this, the second floor of the Tower of Babel finally lit up, indicating that Qinchuan had entered the second floor. According to common sense, the opponent on the second floor of the Tower of Babel should also be an early-stage soul formation opponent. However, because Qinchuan opened the hidden shadow reward channel, the strength of Qinchuan's opponent on the second floor directly soared to the peak of the soul formation stage. He is actually at the peak of the soul formation stage. Looks very powerful. Qinchuan looked at the illusory figure in front of him and was very curious about what kind of skills this illusory figure had. The 3 minutes of preparation time quickly passed. The illusory figure raised his hand and threw a punch at Qinchuan with lightning speed. A turbulent wave of spiritual power brazenly attacked Qinchuan. Seeing this, Qinchuan didn't dodge. Instead, he released a wave of spiritual power to block it. The two waves of spiritual power collided and immediately burst out an extremely shocking impact, causing Qinchuan to fly back more than 100 meters. However, the illusory figure was completely unaffected. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Qinchuan. A sharp long saber suddenly appeared in his hand and he directly slashed at Qinchuan's chest. The sharp saber chi was unstoppable. God's sword intent. Qinchuan shouted and had to use the God's sword intent to block the saber chi of the illusory figure. When the sword intent and saber chi collided, Qinchuan had already retreated. Then, he immediately launched a counterattack at the illusory figure. In an instant, he inscribed the combination of the 5 elements circle charm array and burned the illusory figure with crimson flames. Whoosh! The illusory figure gave up the saber and suddenly rushed into the crimson flames. He was actually not afraid of the crimson flames and directly rushed in front of Qinchuan and launched a strong attack at Qinchuan again. What a troublesome opponent! Qinchuan shouted and actually gave up on all other methods to engage in a melee battle with the illusory figure. The spiritual power of the two sides wildly surged into each other's body, causing a huge impact. Chapter 1002. Inside the Tower of Babel, Qinchuan was fighting with the illusory figure. Outside the Tower of Babel, everyone was looking at the Tower of Babel with puzzled eyes. Before Qinchuan, even the weakest spirit-severing cultivator would be able to quickly pass through the second floor. This was the first time he had seen someone like Qinchuan, who dilly-dallied for so long on the first floor and then dallied for so long on the second floor. What is Qinchuan doing? Is he studying his opponent again? Tu Shanqi was puzzled. With his strength, he could reach the 10th floor by now. Qinchuan shouldn't be stuck on the second floor. Facing Tu Shanqi's question, Tu Shanana replied, "Teacher is just a bit slow. This doesn't mean that teacher can't pass this level." Hearing this, Tu Shanqi nodded and said to Tu Shanana, "I understand what you said, but I really don't understand why he's so curious about the first floor and the second floor. Is he going to waste his time on each floor?" "Be quiet." Tu Shanlei looked at Tu Shanqi and said, "Qinchuan naturally has his reasons. You just need to watch quietly. Hearing Tu Shanlei's words, Tu Shanqi immediately shut his mouth. However, the puzzlement in his eyes didn't disappear. If possible, he really wanted to enter the Tower of Babel and see what Qin Chuan was doing. Tu Shanqi wasn't the only one who had such thoughts. I really want to go in and see what this guy is doing. Hai Junlan looked at the Tower of Babel and frowned. It had been 10 minutes since Qin Chuan started, but Qin Chuan had only reached the second floor. What was Qin Chuan doing against opponents that he could crush with one finger? Junlan, you don't have to worry about it. The opponents on all the floors of Skysplit Tower are the same. No matter how much time he delays, the opponents he faces are no different from the ones you face. If he wants to waste time to attract attention, then let him continue. We only need to see his final result. Hai Sang chuckled and said to Hai Junlan, although Qin Chuan's performance is excellent, I feel that it's still difficult for him to surpass you. For some reason, even though Hai Junlan agreed with Hai Sang's words, she felt that something was amiss. At this moment, Qin Chuan finally passed the second floor and reached the third floor. 1 hour passed, 2 hours passed, 8 hours passed. Previously, Tu Shanqi used 8 hours to pass the 34th floor. Foot also used 8 hours to pass the 35th floor. And now, Qin Chuan also used 8 hours, but he only reached the 20th floor. This speed was too slow compared to others. Some people no longer paid attention to Qin Chuan's final result and turned to do other things, or went to challenge the Tower of Babel themselves. Qin Chuan's speed in the tower is indeed a bit too slow. The others who entered later have already surpassed him. Tu Shanlei was somewhat curious. He asked Tu Shanhao, "What do you think is going on?" "To be honest, I'm not sure." Tu Shanhao shook his head and said to Tu Shanlei, "But I feel that although Qin Chuan's speed is slow, there shouldn't be any other problems. He should at least reach the 40th floor." Hearing Tu Shanhao's answer, Tu Shanlei chuckled. "By the time he reaches the 40th floor, I'm afraid he'll have to wait for more than 8 hours. While the two were talking, a figure suddenly descended from the sky and landed beside them, then said in a hurried tone, "Reporting to Third Elder, Fourth Elder, the Fifth Elder and his people have found a group of palaces. They suspect that it's the center of the ruins. They specially ordered me to ask Third Elder and Fourth Elder to bring people to support them." Hearing this, Tu Shanlei and Tu Shanhao's expression slightly changed. They immediately said, "We'll immediately gather people and set off." When Tu Shanlei and Tu Shanhao started to move, the other forces received the news as well and started to move as well. At the moment, a big half of the warriors in the ruins rushed to the group of palaces in the center of the ruins. The noisy area in front of the tower quieted down immediately. Inside the Tower of Babel, Qin Chuan looked at the figure standing in front of him with an extremely dignified expression. He didn't expect that his opponent on the 49th floor of the Tower of Babel would be his own mirror image. According to the Tower of Babel system, he created this mirror image by observing my previous performance. Moreover, this mirror image's information will be constantly improved as I fight with him, and it will become more and more similar to me. What an interesting setting. I've never fought with myself before. Qin Chuan slightly narrowed his eyes and looked at the mirror image that looked exactly like him. He was very curious about what would happen when they fought later. The moment the 3 minutes of preparation time was over, Qin Chuan raised his hand and punched at the mirror image. The mirror image on the opposite side actually reacted the same way as Qin Chuan. It raised its hand and punched. The spiritual fluctuations it released were even exactly the same. Boom! The two spiritual fluctuations collided in the air and erupted with an extremely violent roar. Before the aftermath of the explosion dissipated, Qin Chuan took action again. He wanted to use the aftermath of the explosion as cover to directly pierce through the mirror image with the blood-drinking spear. The moment Qin Chuan took out the blood-drinking spear, a blood-red spear appeared in the mirror image's hand at the same time. Bang! The blood-drinking spear and the blood-drinking spear collided in the air, and it was difficult to tell who had the upper hand. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan couldn't help but frown slightly. He didn't expect that the mirror image could not only imitate his strength, but also his sacred weapon. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, the mirror image moved again. It actually began to inscribe a talisman array, and it was the level 5 combat array, World of Wood. Seeing the mirror image's action, Qin Chuan no longer hesitated. He immediately condensed a needle with his powerful mental strength and stabbed it at the mirror image, forcibly interrupting the mirror image's action. Then, he raised his hand and took out the high-grade Taoist artifact, Golden Top Mountain, to suppress the mirror image with it. Heavenly Luo Umbrella. In the face of Qin Chuan's suppression, the mirror image did not hesitate to take out the Heavenly Luo Umbrella and easily blocked the Golden Top Mountain. Explode! Qin Chuan shouted in a low voice and directly detonated the high-grade Taoist artifact, Golden Top Mountain. Although the Heavenly Luo Umbrella was a sacred weapon, in the face of the Golden Top Mountain's self-explosion, there was a slight fluctuation in its defense. A slight flaw was exposed, and Qin Chuan seized the opportunity. Golden Light Scissors, go! Qin Chuan controlled the top-grade Taoist artifact, Golden Light Scissors, to rush toward the mirror image. The sharp scissors followed the slight flaw and forcibly cut a gap in the Heavenly Luo Umbrella's defense. At the same time, the heavenly light shot through the gap and directly reflected on the mirror image's body. Chapter 1003. When Qin Chuan thought that the light could easily kill the mirror image once again gave him a big surprise. Roar! Accompanied by a dragon roar, the mirror image turned into a blue thunder dragon. Although it was injured by the light, it was not fatal. Looking at the huge blue thunder dragon in front of him, Qin Chuan could not help but exclaim, "Good guy, really good guy. It can even use this move." One must know that Qin Chuan had never used the dragon form before. He did not expect that the Tong Tian Tower system could even use a move that he had never used before. It was simply ridiculous. However, now was not the time to think about these problems. He should think about how to defeat this mirror image. Puff! Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about how to defeat the mirror image had already spat out several balls of dragon breath at him. The blazing dragon breath instantly surrounded Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan immediately broke out of the encirclement. At the same time, he recalled the blood-drinking spear and used the Heavenly Luo Umbrella to block the mirror image of the blood-drinking spear. Then, he brazenly attacked the blue thunder dragon with the blood-drinking spear in hand. Buzz! The blood-drinking spear emitted a dark red light in the air. The smell of blood permeated the air, making people feel as if they were in an infernal purgatory. Break for me! Qin Chuan angrily roared and used the lightning escape technique. In the blink of an eye, he arrived above the Azure Thunder Dragon's head. Raising the blood-drinking spear in his hand, he ruthlessly stabbed towards the Azure Thunder Dragon's head. Bang! The blood-drinking spear collided with the dragon's scales and exploded with a crisp sound. Although the Blue Thunder Dragon was not injured, the dragon's scales had already cracked. It was unable to resist a second attack. However, the Blue Thunder Dragon obviously would not give Qin Chuan a second chance to attack. It roared and flipped its body, fiercely whipping its tail at Qin Chuan. Golden Light Scissors. Qin Chuan controlled the Golden Light Scissors to rush at the dragon's tail. Although it was impossible to directly cut off the dragon's tail with the Golden Light Scissors, it was not a problem to use it to block the dragon's tail for a moment. Roar! The Blue Thunder Dragon roared and actually followed suit. It also used the mirror image of the Golden Light Scissors to counterattack Qin Chuan, preventing Qin Chuan from stabbing out a second time. Dragon Pearl 9 Transformations, Heavenly Light. Qin Chuan roared and the Heavenly Light Scissors again. At the same time, Qin Chuan's blood-drinking spear in his hand, breaking through the broken dragon's scales and directly piercing into the head of the blue thunder dragon. With a wail, the blue thunder dragon's body. This feeling. This. Both times Qinchuan took the initiative. Both times, he relied on the heavenly light scissors. If he didn't use the heavenly light scissors, it would be very difficult for him to win this battle. Just as Qinchuan was thinking about this, the Tong Tian Tower system's voice suddenly sounded. It said to Qinchuan, "Congratulations, Your Excellency. You have successfully passed the 49th floor of Tong Tian Tower and completed all the tests. Now Your Excellency has two choices. The first choice is to leave Tong Tian Tower with all the rewards. The second choice is to open the final challenge of the 50th floor. If you succeed, you can exchange all the rewards for more generous rewards. If you fail, the rewards will be reduced by half. Please make your choice." Hearing the words of the Tong Tian Tower system, Qinchuan was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that the 50th floor of Tong Tian Tower would be the final challenge. What is the form of this final challenge? What is the strength of the opponent? If he couldn't determine the strength of the opponent, he felt that it was best not to take the risk to participate in this final challenge. Once he failed, the rewards would be reduced by half. This kind of loss was too heavy. The strength of the final challenge of Tong Tian Tower is Invincible Divine Stage. Invincible Divine Stage? Hearing the reply of the Tong Tian Tower system, Qinchuan couldn't help but reveal a playful expression. This was already the third Invincible Divine Stage cultivator he had heard of. The first two were him and Hai Junlan. Since it's Invincible Divine Stage, then even if the reward is reduced by half, I will still challenge it. I want to see who is the real Invincible Divine Stage cultivator. Help me open the final challenge. I want to challenge it. The final challenge has begun. Please make your preparations. The battle will begin in 10 minutes. As the voice of the Tong Tian Tower system fell, a figure slowly appeared in front of Qinchuan. This person wasn't an illusory figure like before, but a real person. The figure looked at Qinchuan with a slightly complicated expression. He sighed and said, "So many years have passed. Finally, a divine stage cultivator has reached the final level of Tong Tian Tower and opened the final challenge. My wait has not been in vain." Hearing this, Qinchuan couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. He asked, "You actually have intelligence? You can speak?" When the figure heard Qinchuan's words, he chuckled lightly and replied, "Hee, although I'm a guardian, I'm different from those guardians you've seen before. I'm a remnant soul. My name is Wang Yangfeng." "Wang Yangfeng!" Qinchuan exclaimed, "the record holder of the Tong Tian Tower, Wang Yangfeng?" Hearing Qinchuan's words, Wang Yangfeng said in a faint voice, "The record holder? If it weren't for that incident, this record might have been broken a long time ago." Hearing Wang Yangfeng's words, Qinchuan felt as if he had touched upon the secret of the disappearance of the ancient human race. He asked curiously, "What happened back then?" "I can't say." Wang Yangfeng shook his head and said, "Once you mention that incident, you will definitely be sensed by a supreme being. When that time comes, perhaps you, as the last hope of the human race, will be destroyed." "A supreme being?" Qinchuan was very puzzled. What kind of being is that? Facing Qinchuan's puzzlement, Wang Yangfeng answered very vaguely, "The rulers of this universe are supreme beings. Their status is far above that of the overlords of the universe." Hearing Wang Yangfeng's explanation, Qinchuan couldn't help but reveal a look of shock on his face. He exclaimed, "The disappearance of the ancient human race and the demon race is really related to these people." In Qinchuan's opinion, those who could be called supreme beings in this universe and whose status was far above that of the overlords of the universe must be the rulers of the ancient, powerful races. Only these people had the strength and ability to banish the ancient human race and the demon race to the land of exile. Wang Yangfeng took a deep look at Qinchuan and said, "Before you have enough strength, it's best to seal these thoughts. Your thoughts may be sensed by these supreme beings at any time. It's very dangerous to constantly think of supreme beings in your mind, do you understand?" Chapter 1004. In response to Wang Yangfeng's reminder, Qinchuan pursed his lips and replied, "I know. For myself and for the sake of rebuilding the glory of the human clan and the demon clan, I will protect myself." Hearing Qinchuan's words, Wang Yangfeng smiled with some relief. He said to Qinchuan, "I am very pleased that you have such awareness. Perhaps the heavens really have eyes, allowing a person with both the bloodline of the human clan and the divine dragon to appear in front of me. The glory of the human clan and the demon clan indeed depends on you." Qinchuan took a deep look at Wang Yangfeng and asked, "Senior, do you have anything else to say to me? I want to know more about the ancient human clan and the demon clan. As a wisp of remnant soul, I can't remember anything other than some key things. If you can defeat me, you can go to the cyclic heaven palace after leaving the Tower of Babel. There may be something you want there." Hearing Wang Yangfeng's words, Qinchuan pursed his lips and said, "Senior, I will do my best to defeat you." Wang Yangfeng laughed and waved his hand. A table and 2 chairs appeared between the two of them. A chessboard was placed on the table, with the lines between the Chu River and the Han River clearly defined. "In the human clan, many people like Go, but I prefer Chinese chess. You can play chess with me for a while." Wang Yangfeng looked at Qinchuan and said, "This is your final challenge." Hearing Wang Yangfeng's words, Qinchuan couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. He asked, "The final challenge is Chinese chess? It's not a battle?" Wang Yangfeng nodded and replied, "If it were in the past, I might exchange pointers with you. But now I can't. This wisp of remnant soul can't hold on for long. Once I fight with you, it may accelerate the collapse of the trial ground." Qinchuan was surprised to hear Wang Yangfeng's words. He asked again, "This relic is supported by Senior's remnant soul?" Wang Yangfeng nodded and replied, "This trial ground has persisted for so long without collapsing. Besides the power of my remnant soul, there is another reason. It is in cyclic heavenly palace. Before you leave, remember to take it with you. Only you with the bloodline of the human race can display its greatest power." Originally, Qinchuan still wanted to ask something, but Wang Yangfeng didn't want to talk about it. He pointed to the chessboard and said, "Okay, let's play." Qinchuan and Wang Yangfeng played chess for 3 days and 3 nights, killing thousands of games. Qinchuan's chess skills were rapidly improving. From being utterly defeated by Wang Yangfeng at the beginning, to barely holding on, to losing more than winning in the end, his progress could be said to be lightning fast. In the process of playing chess, Qinchuan's mental strength had already broken through the liquid level and successfully stepped into the core level. Moreover, it had greatly improved in the core level. "Alright, let's end it here." Wang Yangfeng looked at the endgame on the chessboard with a complicated look in his eyes. At this moment, he suddenly hoped that this game of chess would never end. Hearing Wang Yangfeng's words, Qinchuan looked at Wang Yangfeng with respect and said very sincerely, "Thank you, Senior. You don't have to thank me. You are the last hope of the human race. Helping you is also helping myself and the entire human race." Wang Yangfeng smiled and said to Qinchuan, "If you can adhere to the principles in your heart and not forget your original intention, you will not fail to live up to my expectations of you." While Wang Yangfeng was talking, the chessboard on the table had disappeared and was replaced by a simple bronze square seal. "This is your reward for passing the final challenge, the best sacred weapon, cyclic heavenly seal." Wang Yangfeng said to Qinchuan, "Master this seal, and you can learn the ancient human race's immortal technique, cyclic heavenly seal. Hearing Wang Yangfeng's words, Qin Chuan could not help but be shocked. He exclaimed, "A best sacred weapon?" The cyclic sky seal was originally a supreme quality saint artifact, but it was damaged in a great battle in the past, so it's now a medium quality saint artifact. It's enough for you now, and it won't attract the attention of others. If one day you want to repair the cyclic heavenly seal, you can collect the meteorite iron and reforge the cyclic heavenly seal with the soul refining fire. Help it regain its former glory. As he spoke, Wang Yangfeng said to Qin Chuan, "When I was observing you earlier, I saw you using a silver-white sword. Take it out." Qin Chuan immediately took out the Milky Way sword and placed it on the table. Wang Yangfeng looked at the Milky Way sword and nodded gently, saying, "Good, it is a good sword. It is worth enlightening my acupores." Wang Yangfeng raised a finger and gently touched the Milky Way sword. Immediately, a hazy sword shadow flowed from Wang Yangfeng's fingertip into the Milky Way sword. The Milky Way sword buzzed and suddenly shone brightly. It gradually became transparent and turned into a slowly surging, brilliant Milky Way. The Milky Way sword had been upgraded over the years, but it was only an upper-grade doctrine weapon. However, under Wang Yangming's enlightenment, the Milky Way sword had broken through the limit of a doctrine weapon and become a lower-grade holy weapon. You still need some time to master the cyclic heavenly seal. Now that the Milky Way sword has become a lower-grade holy weapon, it should be able to help you better. Wang Yangfeng sighed and said to Qin Chuan, "With my current ability, I can only help you up to this point." "Thank you, Senior." Qin Chuan looked at Wang Yangming with great gratitude. As his realm and strength continued to improve, the Milky Way sword had become a useless existence in his hands. He could not let go of the feelings he had for the Milky Way sword over the years. Now that the Milky Way sword had been upgraded to a lower-grade holy weapon, it could be said that it had solved a big concern for him. Wang Yangfeng smiled at Qin Chuan's gratitude and said, "With the material of the Milky Way sword, a lower-grade holy weapon is the limit. If you want the Milky Way sword to accompany you for a longer time, then go find some Silverstar iron to integrate into it." "I will remember." Qin Chuan nodded. "Senior, do you have any unfulfilled wishes? I am willing to fulfill them for you." Hearing this, Wang Yangfeng took a deep look at Qin Chuan and replied, "If I have any unfulfilled wish in my life, it would be that I couldn't see you rebuild the glory of the human race with my own eyes and recreate the glory of the ancient human race. If one day you become the master of the universe and lead the human race back to the universe, then summon my soul and let me see the prosperity of the human race again." Hearing Wang Yangfeng's words, Qin Chuan was moved. He said in an extremely serious and firm tone, "I will not let you down." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Wang Yangfeng smiled again and said to Qin Chuan, "Well, I have delayed you long enough. Hurry up and go to the cyclic heavenly palace. Take that thing away before those people break the seal. In the end, you must remember to be careful of the Zergs." Chapter 1005. Buzz. With a burst of light, Qin Chuan's figure slowly appeared outside the Tower of Babel. He turned and looked at the Tower of Babel with a complicated look in his eyes. He said in a low voice, "Senior, I will let you see the prosperity of the human race with your own eyes." "Teacher, you finally came out." Tushan Nana suddenly rushed to Qin Chuan. She looked at Qin Chuan with excitement and said loudly, "Teacher, you are so powerful. You actually reached the 50th floor." Hearing Tushan Nana's words, Qin Chuan chuckled. He looked around and asked curiously, "Why is there no one in the Tower of Babel?" "They set off for the center of the ruins 3 days ago. Someone found a group of palaces there. It is said that there are many treasures inside." Tushan Nana said to Qin Chuan, "I stayed here to wait for you. Now that you have come out, let's go there too." Hearing Tushan Nana's explanation, Qin Chuan couldn't help but think of the Pantheon Palace that Wang Yangfeng had told him about. That group of palaces was probably the Pantheon Palace. Tushan Nana looked at Qinchuan curiously and said to Qinchuan, "Teacher, why do I feel that you are much stronger than before you entered the Tower of Babel?" Qinchuan smiled and said to Tushan Nana, "That's right. I am now in the peak of the divine transformation realm." Hearing Qinchuan's words, Tushan Nana exclaimed loudly and said to Qinchuan, "Teacher, your cultivation level is rising too fast. You are simply not giving others a chance to live." "Okay, let's talk on the way." Qinchuan grabbed Tushan Nana and quickly flew toward the Pantheon Palace. He had to reach the Pantheon Palace as soon as possible. Otherwise, he might not be able to hold back and start his tribulation. Compared to bearing the destructive power of the thunder tribulation himself, Qinchuan preferred to let others bear it. In the center of the ruins, outside Flipping Heaven Palace, outside the palace gate, various forces gathered. Even the powerful cultivators of the Dongshu realm, who had disappeared after entering the relic, gathered here to discuss the exploration of the Flipping Heaven Palace. Everyone, the defense rune array of this mysterious palace is about to break apart. In order to prevent any conflicts during the exploration, I suggest that we allocate the exploration areas in advance. As the strongest expert among the various forces, the Sunset Sage suggested to everyone that they should divide the area within the mysterious palace. Every force could only explore the area that they were assigned to. If anyone dared to snatch the treasures within the palace, they would gang up on them. Once they left the mysterious palace, they would have to rely on their own abilities to snatch the treasures or protect the treasures. Everyone remained silent in response to Luo Ri Venerable's suggestion. They neither agreed nor disagreed. The reason for such an attitude was that although everyone felt that this plan was not bad, what if they were assigned to an area where there were no treasures? Wouldn't they have to watch others search for treasures? Seeing that everyone was silent, Luo Ri Venerable continued, "There must be a main hall in this palace. There must be great treasures in the main hall. The allocation of areas does not include the main hall. This way, even if you don't get any treasures in your own area, you can focus on the main hall." Hearing Luo Ri Venerable's words, Hai Sang chuckled and replied, "Luo Ri Venerable, with your cultivation at the late stage of the Dongshu realm, even if we join forces, we may not be able to defeat you." Everyone present was a representative of various forces. Among them, the Great Mansion and the Tushan family were the strongest. However, they were only at the middle stage of the Dongshu realm. Compared to Luo Ri Venerable, they were far weaker. Not to mention, there were two other venerables present. Even if they could get a share of the treasures in the main hall, they would only be able to get some scraps. What do you think, General Hai? Luo Ri Venerable looked at Hai Sang. If we don't allocate areas and just rely on our own abilities, how many of you can defeat me? Upon hearing Luo Ri Zunja's words, Long River Zunja and Guyan Zunja, who were resting with their eyes shut, slowly opened their eyes. They looked towards the crowd and spoke in a faint voice. "If you are willing to start a war, we have no objections." Everyone's expressions turned ugly when they heard Venerable Long River and Venerable Guyan's words. Judging from the situation, the three venerables had clearly reached an agreement and joined forces. With their strength, even if they join forces, they may not be a match for the three venerables, let alone the fact that it was impossible for them to work together. We've already expressed our intentions very clearly. The choice is in your hands. Before we break this defense glyph array, we hope that you can give us an answer. Luo Ri Venerable looked at everyone indifferently and said indifferently, "You may leave." After the meeting, the various forces left with heavy hearts and solemn expressions. As the representative of the Great Mansion, Hai Sang's face was ashen. He was extremely unhappy. The Great Mansion is the strongest force in Tron Nebula. When have we ever been bullied like this? Luo Ri Venerable and the other two have gone too far. If the governor were here, I'd like to see if they would dare to speak with such an attitude. Hearing Hai Sang's words, Tu Shanlei snorted coldly and said, My Tushan clan has dominated Tron Nebula for tens of thousands of years. We are a branch of the Tian people. If the Great Elder were here, he would definitely make Luo Ri Venerable pay for his arrogance. Whether it was Hai Sang or Tu Shanlei, they were only venting their anger. They would never say such words in front of Luo Ri Venerable. After all, Luo Ri Venerable and the others were independent cultivators. They had no background and did not have any concerns. However, they were different. Both the Great Mansion and the Tushan clan were large forces. If they really offended Luo Ri Venerable, it would definitely be troublesome for them. Hai Sang looked at Tu Shanlei and said in a low voice, Do we really have to do as Luo Ri Venerable says? Tu Shanlei looked up at Hai Sang and asked, Do you have a better idea? You should know the huge gap between us and the late Dongshu stage. Even if we join forces, we might not be a match for Luo Ri Venerable and the other two. Now we can only take one step at a time. Right now I hope that there are no treasures in this palace. That way we won't have to worry about it. You've gone too far. Hai Sang shouted angrily. When we return, I'll definitely report this to the governor. Luo Ri Venerable should also be warned and taught a lesson. Hearing Hai Sang, Tushan sighed, then turned around and walked towards the campsite of Tushan family. At the moment, he had to discuss with 4th Elder and 5th Elder about how to deal with this situation before the defensive spell formation was broken. Tushan family could never return without achieving anything. Chapter 1006. By the time Qinchuan and Tushan Nana arrived at Flipping Heaven Palace, the defense charm array was already on the verge of breaking. Qinchuan couldn't help but whisper, They are so fast. The defense charm array of Flipping Heaven Palace is about to break. Hearing Qinchuan's words, Tushan Nana looked at Qinchuan with some surprise and asked, Teacher, do you know the name of this palace? Qinchuan's expression changed slightly. He explained to Tushan Nana, When I was in the Tower of Babel, I obtained a Tao artifact with the name Flipping Heaven Palace written on it. I guessed that this palace was most likely Flipping Heaven Palace. Hearing Qinchuan's explanation, Tushan Nana nodded and said, So that's how it is. Nana, go find the 3rd Elder and the others. I have other things to do, so I have to leave for a while. Qinchuan said to Tushan Nana, If the 3rd Elder and the others ask about me, just say that I have something to do and can't come. Do you understand? Don't worry, teacher. I know what to say, Tushan Nana said to Qinchuan. Teacher, you have to be careful when you are alone. Qinchuan nodded. Then, his figure flashed and he flew into the distance. Qinchuan's figure flashed again and again. Soon, he arrived at the side of Flipping Heaven Palace. He landed on the open ground. After confirming that there was no one around, he took out the Flipping Heaven seal. He wanted to use the Flipping Heaven seal to open the defense charm array of Flipping Heaven Palace and enter without anyone knowing. The moment Qinchuan took out the Flipping Heaven seal, the defense charm array of Flipping Heaven Palace sensed it. A door that could fit one person slowly appeared on the surface. Qinchuan saw this and stepped in without hesitation. After passing through the defense charm array, Qinchuan's figure appeared in a garden. There were all kinds of rare flowers growing in the garden. After countless years, they were still as beautiful as before. However, Qinchuan wasn't in the mood to enjoy the beautiful scenery of the garden. He needed to immediately head to the main hall of Cyclic Sky Palace and take away the treasure before anyone else arrived. Just as Qinchuan was thinking about this, there was a roaring sound outside Cyclic Sky Palace. The defensive array had been broken. Oh no, the defensive array glyphs have been broken. I need to speed up. Qinchuan's expression was grave. His figure flashed and he appeared in the air. Relying on the Flipping Sky seal in his hand, he quickly flew toward the main hall. The defense array glyphs of the mysterious palace have been broken. Now, everyone, fight for the treasures with your own abilities, the Sunset Sage shouted, and his figure disappeared without a trace in a flash as he charged straight in. After yesterday's discussion, the various forces had decided not to accept Venerable Sunset's suggestion. They would fight for the treasures with their own abilities. In their opinion, with Venerable Sunset and the other two's status and vision, they wouldn't be interested in ordinary treasures. They would definitely target the main hall first. As long as they avoided the main hall, they would be avoiding Venerable Sunset and the other two. Then, they could snatch the other treasures with peace of mind. However, Venerable Sunset and the other two didn't go to the main hall together. Instead, Venerable Sunset went to the main hall first, while Venerable Long River and Venerable Lone Smoke went to the other areas with the other forces to snatch the treasures. However, everyone soon discovered that most of the places in the mysterious palace were dormitories. There weren't any treasures. After searching for a while, everyone gathered outside the main hall. Looking at the plaque hanging above the main hall, Venerable Sunset said softly, "Since there are no treasures in other places, the treasures should be gathered in Cyclic Sky Palace. I have read many books of the human race, but I have never seen the name Cyclic Sky Palace." Venerable Lone Smoke said indifferently, "If there are no treasures in Cyclic Sky Palace, then we have come here for nothing. I think there must be great treasures in Cyclic Sky Palace." Venerable Long River chuckled. "If this is just an ordinary palace, why would there be a need for all these defensive seal arrays? All right, let's not talk about this. Let's think of a way to break the arrays." Venerable Sunset looked at the other forces and said indifferently, "We need to rely on these people to break the arrays." While Venerable Sunset was looking at the others, they were also discussing Cyclic Sky Palace. There are many ancient books of the human race in the library of my Tushan family. I have read them one by one. I once saw the words Cyclic Sky Palace, but it wasn't Cyclic Sky Palace. It was Cyclic Sky Seal. Tu Shanlei looked at the others and said seriously, "Cyclic Sky Seal is an attack-type top-grade holy weapon." When everyone heard what Tu Shanlei said, they were all shocked. A top-grade saint weapon, even if it was only an auxiliary type, was a rare true treasure, let alone an attack type. Once such a true treasure was revealed to the public, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. By then, all the universe overlords would definitely fight for it. Even the great ancient races would be tempted. Now, the most powerful attack type holy weapon in Tron Nebula is only a middle-grade holy weapon. If Cyclic Sky Seal really exists in Cyclic Sky Palace, I don't know whether it will be a blessing or a curse for us. Hai Sang took a deep look at Tu Shanlei. If your Tushan family gets Cyclic Sky Seal, you might be able to offer this true treasure to the Tian people and get a chance to enter the celestial cluster. Hearing Hai Sang, Tu Shanlei glanced at Hai Sang and responded, "I know the power of our Tushan family. If I truly get this sky-flipping seal, I'm afraid that I will have to leave the family immediately. Otherwise, before we can contact the divine kind, our entire family will be destroyed." Well, there is no point in talking about this now. Let's talk about it after we break the defense charm array and see Cyclic Sky Seal with our own eyes. And the representative of Unju Group, smiled and said to the others, "Sunset Knight is watching us." Hearing In Yi's words, the others subconsciously looked at Sunset Knight and the other two not far away. After looking at each other, Sunset Knight took the initiative to walk toward them. "Everyone, I think the treasures of Cyclic Sky Palace must be gathered in this main palace. Why don't we work together to break the defense charm array of this main palace and get the treasures together?" Sunset Knight said to the others. "The three of us will each take one treasure, and the rest of the treasures will belong to you. If there are less than 3 treasures, then we will take one treasure together." Hearing Sunset Venerable's words, everyone pondered for a moment before agreeing. This was because regardless of whether they agreed or not, Sunset Venerable was going to break through the defensive talisman formation outside the Heaven Palace. Moreover, the conditions that Sunset Venerable and the other two had proposed weren't excessive. In that case, let's work together to break the array. Hai Sang said to the others, if someone doesn't work hard when breaking the array, then don't think about entering Cyclic Sky Palace to get the treasures. Chapter 1007. While all the forces outside were working together to crack the defense charm array of the Flipping Heaven Palace, Qin Chuan had already entered the palace with the Flipping Heaven seal in his hand. The inner area of the Flipping Heaven Palace was divided into 4 parts: the library, the Heavenly Elixir Hall, the treasure house, and the main hall. Qin Chuan entered the library first. When he saw the neatly arranged ancient books of the ancient human clan on the bookshelves, his eyes lit up. As long as he finished reading all these books, he would definitely have a comprehensive and clear understanding of the ancient human clan. Just as Qin Chuan was about to take all these ancient books away, a beautiful figure suddenly walked down from the 2nd floor of the library. When he saw this figure, Qin Chuan was slightly stunned. He then exclaimed, "Why are you here?" The beautiful figure walking down from the 2nd floor was none other than the woman in the yellow dress that Qin Chuan found particularly familiar. Hearing Qin Chuan's exclamation, the woman in the yellow dress finally noticed Qin Chuan's existence. When she saw Qin Chuan, a sharp glint flashed in her eyes. She said in a low voice, "How did you enter the library? Have you been following me all this time? Do you really want to die?" The woman in the yellow dress had an ugly expression. She hadn't expected Qin Chuan to follow her all the way here without her noticing. Qin Chuan immediately explained to the woman in the yellow dress, "I entered this place through some special means. I'm not the only one who wants to enter. There are many people outside who are trying to crack the defense charm array. Once the array is broken, they will also come in. Also, I didn't follow you. I found this place myself." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, the woman in the yellow dress snorted coldly and said, "You are all intruders. Die." Seeing that the woman in the yellow dress was about to attack, Qin Chuan quickly said, "I'm not an intruder. I'm your friend. I don't mean you any harm." "Friend? If you are my friend, why don't I recognize you? Why are you secretly following me?" The woman in the yellow dress looked at Qin Chuan coldly. "I'll give you one last chance to explain." Qin Chuan was about to speak when a roar suddenly came from outside. Hearing this, Qin Chuan's expression immediately changed. He exclaimed, "Oh no! The defense charm array is about to be broken. Let's go to the main hall." Now, he had no time to explain these things. He had to get the treasure that Wang Yangfeng said would be of great help to him as soon as possible. Whoosh! Before his voice died away, Qin Chuan's figure had disappeared from the book pavilion and rushed quickly to the main hall. Seeing that Qin Chuan had left, the woman in the yellow dress immediately chased after him and came to the main hall with him. She looked at Qin Chuan, who was looking for something in the main hall, and couldn't help frowning slightly. She didn't know why, but she suddenly had an inexplicable sense of familiarity with Qin Chuan in her heart. "It's strange. Senior clearly said that as long as I enter the main hall with the Flipping Sky seal, I will definitely be able to sense the existence of the treasure. But why is my sense so vague now?" Qin Chuan was full of doubts. Although there were many treasures in the main hall, it seemed that none of them were what he wanted. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this problem, the defense charm array finally broke. Qin Chuan's expression changed slightly, and he immediately said to the woman in the yellow dress, "Quickly, hide." The moment the defense charm array of the Flipping Sky Palace was broken, people from various forces swarmed in. Those with higher cultivation and status rushed to the main hall, while the rest rushed to the other subhalls. The division of labor was clear. Venerable Sunset took the lead and was the first to enter the main hall. When he stood in front of the grand main hall and saw the scene inside, a gleam of light flashed through his eyes. He chuckled and said, "There really are many treasures in the main hall." Whoosh! Numerous figures landed beside the Sunset Sage almost simultaneously. Excitement flashed across their eyes as they looked at the treasures that were emitting a mysterious glow sealed within the small symbol arrays in the main hall. Some of them even had greedy expressions on their faces, as if they could not wait to take all of these treasures for themselves. "Everyone, according to our previous agreement, the three of us will pick a treasure first, and then the rest will belong to you. You won't go back on your words now, right?" Sunset Sage looked at everyone with a subtle gaze. He focused on Hai Sang of the Great Capital Prefecture and Tushan Lei of the Tushan clan. Hearing Sunset Sage's words, Tushan Lei was the first to speak. He replied, "The Tushan clan will naturally keep our promise and let the three sages pick first. The Great Capital Prefecture doesn't like to break promises." Hai Sang looked deeply at Sunset Sage and replied, "As long as the three sages don't interfere after obtaining the treasures, I naturally have no objections." There were many treasures in the main hall. Letting Sunset Sage and the other two sages pick first and then withdraw from the competition was a good thing for them. The advantages outweighed the disadvantages. "Very good." Sunset Sage laughed. "Changhe, Gaian, let's go get the treasures." The three of them immediately charged into the main hall after Luo Ri Zunja's words sounded. They were prepared to quietly choose a powerful treasure that was suitable for them. After browsing for a moment, the three of them simultaneously gathered their gazes on a golden-armored figure. The Sunset Venerable noticed the gazes of the other two and chuckled. "Great minds think alike. It seems like we've all chosen the same treasure." "Sunset, this seems to be a battle armor?" Venerable Changhe smiled. "I remember that you seem to have a battle armor that suits you very well. How about you give this one to me?" On the other side, Venerable Gaian said, "This battle armor doesn't suit me. You two can discuss it." While speaking, Sir Lone Smoke slowly walked in front of a golden stream of light and looked at it. Although she didn't know what it was, she was sure that the value of this golden stream of light was definitely not lower than that of the battlesuit. Just as Venerable Gaian decided to take the ball of golden light, the battle armor sitting on the stage suddenly trembled slightly, attracting everyone's attention. "This is..." Seeing the golden battle armor tremble, a hint of surprise flashed across the Sunset Venerable's eyes. Could it be that this battle armor has its own consciousness? Otherwise, how can it move on its own? Venerable Changhe looked at the battle armor with blazing eyes and said to Sunset Sage, "Sunset, give this battle armor to me. I'm willing to compensate you with other treasures." As he spoke, Venerable Long River could no longer contain his excitement. He arrived in front of the golden armor in a flash. Just as he was about to break the small talisman formation and take the golden armor away, a dignified and resounding voice suddenly rang out from the golden armor. "Trespassers of Flip Heaven Palace will be killed without mercy." Chapter 1008. When the majestic voice rang out, everyone in the main hall was shocked. Could it be that the golden armor was not a treasure but the guardian of Cyclic Heaven Palace? Just as everyone was thinking about this, the suspected guardian had already taken action. He suddenly threw a punch at Venerable Long River, who was standing in front of him. Venerable Long River's expression did not change as he raised his hand to block the punch. He only took 2 steps back to dissipate the huge impact. "Humph! I thought this guardian was strong. It's only at the middle stage of the Dongshu realm." Initially, Reverend Chang he had been a little worried when he heard the majestic voice that was filled with murderous intent. However, after this round of probing, he was completely at ease. The guardian's strength wasn't too strong, and he could deal with it easily. Sunset Venerable and Lone Smoke Venerable were also relieved when they heard Long River Venerable's words. A guardian at the middle stage of the Dongshu realm would not affect them at all. "Long River, let's end this quickly." Lone Smoke Venerable glanced at Long River Venerable and then turned his attention to the golden streamer in front of him. He was ready to collect the golden streamer. At this moment, the guardian suddenly roared and appeared behind Lone Smoke Venerable in a flash. He suddenly punched at Lone Smoke Venerable's back. Humph! Lone Smoke Venerable snorted in the face of the guardian's attack. He turned around and punched out as well, forcing the guardian to retreat. Lone Smoke Venerable's expression turned ugly. He said to Long River Venerable, "If you can't defeat this guardian, why don't you let me help you? You don't have to worry about that." Long River Venerable's figure flashed and he appeared in front of the guardian. He said in a deep voice, "Your opponent is me." Before he finished speaking, the vast spiritual power in Long River Venerable's body surged out and suddenly attacked the guardian. The powerful force almost instantly suppressed the guardian to the ground. While it restricted the guardian's movements, it did not cause any damage to the ground of the main hall. It could be seen that Long River Venerable's control of his spiritual power had reached the point of perfection. However, what was surprising was that although the guardian was suppressed by Long River Venerable, its momentum did not seem to weaken. It was still trying its best to resist. Venerable Long River's face suddenly turned gloomy when he saw this, and he said in a low voice, "This guardian isn't strong. What strong is the armor on him?" Originally, Long River Venerable wanted to kill the guardian and preserve the armor. However, judging from the current situation, it wouldn't be easy for him to do so. If he damaged the armor in the process, he would be heartbroken for a long time. Seeing that Venerable Long River had completely suppressed the guardian, Venerable Gaian turned his gaze towards the ball of golden light once more and was about to take it. However, the guardian actually made a new move at this moment. Roar! As the protector roared out furiously, a bronze seal suddenly appeared before him. It radiated with an extremely shocking pulse of energy as it charged toward Venerable Long River. Venerable Long River's expression changed when he saw the cyclic sky seal's attack. He quickly dodged and the cyclic sky seal's attack headed straight for Venerable Gaian. Bang! Although Venerable Gaian was prepared, he was still injured by the cyclic sky seal's attack. His face turned pale, and he was extremely angry. "Does this guardian have a grudge against me? Why is he targeting me?" Venerable Gaian was furious. Every time she tried to take the ball of golden light, the guardian would suddenly explode and attack her. It was simply disgusting. Perhaps he attacked you because you wanted to collect the golden stream of light. Perhaps in this guardian's program, everyone who wants to collect the treasures in this hall is his first target. Venerable Sunset's analysis was reasonable. The guardian's attack seemed to be directed at Venerable Long River, but its actual target was Venerable Gaian. "Long River, I'll deal with this guardian with you. You take the golden armor and I take the bronze seal. How about that?" The Sunset Venerable looked at the bronze square seal floating in front of the protector and said in a deep voice, "If the two of us work together, we will definitely be able to kill the protector without harming this golden battle armor." Venerable Long River's face changed slightly when he heard Venerable Sunset's words. Naturally, he could tell that the bronze seal was a supreme treasure as well, and it might even be more valuable than the golden armor. However, since Venerable Sunset had spoken, he could not turn down the offer. Then it's a deal. Just as the Sunset Venerable and Long River Venerable were about to work together to deal with the protector, the people nearby all focused their attention on the bronze square seal in front of the protector. This was because Tu Shanlei had cried out when the bronze square seal appeared. "A supreme grade saint artifact, the cyclic sky seal. Brother Tu Shanlei, are you sure this is the cyclic sky seal?" Hai Sang stared at the bronze seal with shining eyes. He said to Tu Shanlei, "This is a supreme grade saint artifact." Tu Shanlei asked Hai Sang, "Do you think you can force Venerable Long River to retreat and severely injure Venerable Gaian with the Great Du Prefecture's Heavenly King token?" Hai Sang's expression changed slightly when he heard Tu Shanlei's words. He replied, I can't do it. The Guardian's strength is only on par with ours, but it was able to force Venerable Long River to retreat and severely injure Venerable Gaian because of this bronze seal. Only a supreme grade saint artifact can have such power. However, the Guardian doesn't seem to be able to unleash the full power of the cyclic sky seal. Otherwise, Venerable Gaian would be in an even worse state. Tu Shanlei did not know that the cyclic sky seal was damaged and could only unleash the power of a middle-grade saint artifact. However, his analysis was reasonable and convincing. Doesn't that mean the cyclic sky seal will fall into Venerable Sunset's hands? Hai Sang said in a low voice, once Venerable Sunset obtains the cyclic sky seal, who in Tron Nebula will be his match? With Venerable Sunset's strength and the power of the cyclic sky seal, he could dominate Tron Nebula. Even if the Great Du Prefecture and the Tushan clan joined forces, they might not be able to defeat Venerable Sunset. If Hai Sang could think of this, so could Tu Shanlei. However, everything was still unknown, and they did not have to be too hasty. Let's wait and see. Tu Shanlei said in a low voice. The Guardian will definitely not be able to defeat Venerable Sunset and Venerable Long River easily with the cyclic sky seal. If there's a chance we can. Tu Shanlei didn't finish his words, but everyone present understood what Tu Shanlei meant. Chapter 1009. Qin Chuan was flustered. His heart was in a mess. When the defense glyph array was broken and the various forces were about to rush into the main palace, he had no choice but to borrow the shell of the little armored dragon and put on the Holy Monarch armor to hide his true appearance. At the same time, he also wanted to disguise himself as a battle armor. However, he had neglected the fact that the Holy Monarch armor's design was too eye-catching. As a result, the three venerables immediately targeted him. Originally, Qin Chuan did not intend to do anything special. He was prepared to wait and see. However, when he saw Venerable Gaian walk toward the golden stream of light, he could not help but act. That golden stream of light was the goal of his trip. It was the treasure that Wang Yangfeng had repeatedly reminded him to take away. Not long ago, he had seen the woman in the yellow dress transform into that golden stream of light to cover her tracks. Simply put, the woman in the yellow dress was the treasure that he was looking for. Qin Chuan had not sensed clearly earlier because the woman in the yellow dress had not transformed into her true form. However, at that time, he had no time to think about this. In order to prevent Venerable Gaian from taking away the treasure, he had no choice but to pretend to be a guardian to attract everyone's attention. However, against Venerable Long River, Qin Chuan was no match for him even with the help of the Holy Monarch armor. In order to not expose his identity, he had no choice but to use the Flipping Sky Seal to counterattack. Although the counterattack with the Flipping Sky Seal was effective, Qin Chuan knew very well that the Flipping Sky Seal would definitely attract the covetous eyes of others. Just as he thought, Venerable Sunset joined the battle without hesitation, causing his situation to become dangerous once again. Venerable Sunset had always been a man of action. After confirming that he was going to join forces with Venerable Long River, he attacked Qin Chuan. The moment he attacked, he used the law of space to seal Qin Chuan's body, preventing Qin Chuan from moving. Long River, use your mental strength to attack the Guardian and kill him. Even without Venerable Sunset's reminder, Venerable Long River knew what to do. He immediately condensed his mental strength into a silver needle and stabbed it straight at Qin Chuan's head. When the silver needle pierced Qin Chuan's head, it was instantly shattered by Qin Chuan's powerful mental strength. Ah! When the silver needle formed by his mental strength was shattered by Qin Chuan, Venerable Long River immediately cried out in pain. He had a splitting headache. Venerable Sunset was shocked when he saw Venerable Long River's reaction. How? Your mental strength is to be at the peak of the liquid state. Could it be that the Guardian's mental strength? Even Venerable Long River did not expect something like this to happen, let alone Venerable Sunset. How could a mere puppet possess such powerful mental energy? This didn't make sense at all. The onlookers in the distance were even more incredulous when they saw this scene. Venerable Sunset and Venerable Long River teamed up but couldn't do anything to the Guardian. This Guardian was too perverted. Although this Guardian's realm is only around the middle stage of the Void Transformation realm, with its powerful mental strength, strong defensive armor, and strong offensive bronze square seal, its overall strength is definitely not weaker than ours. It can't be underestimated. Venerable Lone Smoke said in a deep voice. I'll help you. After the previous lesson, Venerable Lone Smoke already understood that if she couldn't get rid of this Guardian, she wouldn't be able to get the treasure in peace. When Qinchuan saw that Venerable Lone Smoke was also attracted by him, he was relieved. As long as Venerable Lone Smoke didn't continue to attack the golden stream of light that the woman in the yellow dress turned into, his efforts wouldn't be in vain. Just as Qinchuan was thinking about this, the three venerables attacked him at the same time. Moreover, they used 3 low-grade sacred weapons, all of which were offensive types. Lich Whip, Mountain Suppressing Stone, Song of the Azure Sky. When the 3 low-grade sacred weapons attacked Qinchuan at the same time, Qinchuan immediately commanded the Flipping Sky Seal to meet them. Under his control, the Flipping Sky Seal resisted the siege of the 3 low-grade sacred weapons, but it was a little difficult. It could only parry and not fight back. I'm not familiar with the Flipping Sky Seal yet, so I can't use it well. If I have more time, I'll definitely be able to suppress these 3 low-grade sacred weapons with the help of the Flipping Sky Seal. Qinchuan thought to himself. While feeling helpless, he also felt gratified by the power of the Flipping Sky Seal. Without the Flipping Sky Seal, he was afraid that he would die here today. Just as Qinchuan and the 3 venerables were fighting, the woman in the yellow dress, who turned into a golden stream of light, had a lot of thoughts in her mind. She clearly saw that Qinchuan took the initiative to fight the 3 venerables to protect her. She didn't understand why Qinchuan did this. They had only met twice and were just strangers. Could it be that he didn't lie to me and we're really friends? But why don't I remember him at all? The woman in the yellow dress couldn't understand what kind of past she had with Qinchuan that made Qinchuan willing to take such a huge risk for her. Seeing that the 3 of them couldn't defeat the Flipping Sky Seal, Sunset Venerable roared and gathered his hands in front of his chest. He mobilized his spiritual power and condensed it into a blazing fireball. It was as dazzling as a small sun and emitted an extremely shocking pressure. Sunset! Sunset Venerable roared and blasted his famous consummate skill toward Qinchuan. Before the terrifying spiritual power fluctuation reached him, Qinchuan felt a huge sense of crisis. Subconsciously, he displayed the second change of the 9 changes of the Dragon Ball, Sky Sword. Sky Sword. Qinchuan roared as well. A silver-white sword light suddenly appeared in front of him and shot toward the blazing small sun. The two collided and instantly exploded with an earth-shattering impact, turning the hall into a mess. Rumble! Under this powerful explosion, all the small talisman arrays on the treasures were destroyed. All kinds of treasures were sent flying into the distance by the shockwave, and the hall was on the verge of collapse. Sunset Venerable and the other 2 were the closest to the explosion of the shockwave and suffered the greatest impact. They flew thousands of meters before coming to a stop. Everyone's face was gloomy to the extreme. How can this damned Guardian be so difficult to deal with and so powerful? Sunset Venerable said in exasperation. Other than that battle armor, the bronze seal, and his powerful spiritual power, he actually has such a terrifying move. Venerable Long River and Venerable Lone Smoke could empathize with Venerable Sunset's feelings. They had never imagined that the Guardian would have such a powerful trump card. Even Venerable Sunset's famous ultimate technique was no match for it. At that moment, a golden figure carrying a golden stream of light shot into the sky as if he wanted to take the opportunity to escape. "Where do you think you're going?" When Venerable Sunset saw this, he immediately shouted angrily and chased after him. Chapter 10:10. Although Qinchuan had successfully defeated Sunset Knight with the power of the Sky Sword, he had also suffered a great impact. In order to protect the golden stream of light that the yellow-dressed woman had turned into, he had stood in the center of the explosion without retreating a single step. At this time, he was already at the end of his rope. He had no choice but to try to break out. Facing Sunset Knight's pursuit, Qinchuan gritted his teeth and activated his powerful spiritual power to inscribe a smoky gray rune array in the air. Venerable Sunset, who was charging towards Qinchuan, couldn't help but reveal a wisp of dense shock when he saw the smoky gray talisman array master that had appeared in the sky. He cried out involuntarily, "This is a level 5 battle array?" Due to the extreme shock, Sunset Knight's voice became hoarse and sharp. He had never imagined that the Guardian would have such a trump card as a level 5 battle array. Whirlwind and clouds. Following Qinchuan's angry roar, a gust of wind rose above the flipping heaven palace, causing the sky and earth to change color. Taking advantage of the gust of wind blocking Sunset Knight, Qinchuan used the last of his spiritual power to use the thunder escape technique and left the flipping heaven palace in an instant, disappearing without a trace. Damn it! Damn it! How could this be? Venerable Long River was furious. They were 3 venerables, yet they were unable to do anything to a mere guardian. If news of this were to spread, they would be utterly humiliated. This was definitely the most abnormal and incomprehensible guardian he had ever seen. Powerful spiritual power, powerful offensive sacred artifact, super defensive battle armor, an ultimate move comparable to the setting sun, and now, even a rank 5 battle formation has appeared. How could a guardian created by the ancient humans be so abnormal? Lone Smoke Knight was really angry. The Guardian had taken advantage of the chaos to escape, and he had even taken away the golden stream of light that she admired. This made her so depressed that she wanted to vomit blood. Just as Long River and Lone Smoke Knight were feeling ashamed and angry, Sunset Knight broke out of the gust of wind and returned to their side. His face was extremely gloomy as he gritted his teeth and said, "This is definitely not a guardian." Venerable Long River was shocked to hear Venerable Sunset's words. He asked, "What did you discover?" He wanted to take advantage of the chaos to escape. He had no intention of continuing to guard the flipping heaven palace. "Do you think this is something a normal guardian would do?" Sunset Knight coldly said, "Someone must have used some special means to break into Cyclic Sky Palace while we weren't paying attention. They happened to be surrounded by us in the main hall. They had no choice but to pretend to be a guardian and fight us." Venerable Long River and Venerable Gaian's expressions became extremely ugly when they heard Venerable Sunset's analysis. If what Venerable Sunset said was true, then weren't they being toyed with like monkeys? "Investigate. We must find out who this person is." Venerable Lone Smoke said solemnly, "If I can't skin him alive, I won't be able to vent my hatred. What do we do now? We didn't even get a single treasure." Venerable Long River looked down at the various forces fighting for the treasures. "We can't go back empty-handed. Let's go. If we can't eat the meat, we'll drink the soup first." Sunset Knight snorted coldly. "Let's go down and snatch a similar treasure." Just as Sage Sunset and the other 2 also lowered their pride and joined the chaotic battle, Qinchuan had already arrived at a desolate mountain forest. He, who was already extremely weak, fell to the ground with a plop. The Sage Monarch armor on his body disappeared, and a large amount of filthy blood gushed out. At this moment, Qin was so weak that he didn't even have the strength to take out a small recovery pill from his storage ring. At this moment, the golden streak of light turned back into the yellow-dressed woman. She took out a jade bottle and poured out a small recovery pill into Qin's mouth. When the small recovery pill dissolved in Qin's body, Qin's condition finally improved a little. Looking at Qin lying in the blood, the yellow-dressed woman's gaze was extremely complicated. She asked Qin in confusion, "You? Why are you risking your life for me?" Hearing the yellow-dressed woman's words, Qin opened his eyes slightly and looked at her. He said softly, "I have a friend who's very similar to you. I once misunderstood her and watched her die in front of me. Back then, I swore to the heavens that if I could turn back time, I would do anything to save her." Hearing Qin's words, the yellow-dressed woman's heart trembled. She asked, "What's your friend's name?" Qin grinned and replied, "She's my senior sister. Her name is..." When Qin woke up, the injuries on his body had mostly recovered. He lay on the grass with a lonely expression on his face. "Senior sister, did you leave again?" Just as Qin was muttering to himself, the yellow-dressed woman's figure suddenly appeared beside him. She asked with concern, "You're awake?" When Qin saw the yellow-dressed woman, he was pleasantly surprised. He asked, "You didn't leave?" "I just went outside to check out the situation and gather information." The yellow-dressed woman sat down beside Qin and said to Qin, "That day, the cyclic heavenly palace was in chaos. Various forces were fighting for treasures. Even now, there are still people searching for treasures in the cyclic heavenly palace. Many people are curious about where you went. They don't seem to have discovered your true identity." Qin pursed his lips and replied, "It's better to be safe than sorry. Those people didn't discover anything strange, but that doesn't mean the three venerables didn't either." Speaking of this, Qin suddenly asked the yellow-dressed woman, "By the way, you still haven't told me why you're living in the cyclic heavenly palace. At that time, I saw someone who looked very similar to you in the outside world. Was that you?" When the yellow-dressed woman heard this, she answered with some hesitation, "The person you met should be me. Some time ago, I seem to have gone to the outside world to participate in an auction. When the auction ended, I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was back in the cyclic heavenly palace. I thought it was a dream, but from what you've said, it seems that I really did go to the outside world." Qin asked curiously, "Do you know why you appeared in the cyclic heavenly palace?" The yellow-dressed woman shook her head and replied, "I don't know. When I first woke up, I was in the cyclic heavenly palace. I don't remember anything. I only know that I should belong here." Hearing the yellow-dressed woman's answer, Qin suddenly became excited. He asked with some expectation and some nervousness, "When did you wake up in the cyclic heavenly palace?" The yellow-dressed woman thought for a moment and replied, "I don't remember the exact time, but it shouldn't have been too long. About a year ago." Chapter 10-11. After hearing the yellow-dressed woman's answer, Qin's heart couldn't help but tremble. He looked at the yellow-dressed woman with a complicated expression and asked, "Can I see your true face?" Hearing Qin's request, the yellow-dressed woman finally didn't refuse this time. She raised her hand and took off the veil on her face, revealing her true face to Qin. Looking at the incomparably familiar cold and sexy face in front of him, Qin felt as if his breathing was about to stop. Exactly the same, Qin murmured in a low voice. "This can't be a coincidence." Qin clearly remembered the time of Zhou Lin's death. It almost matched the time of the yellow-dressed woman's awakening. He had reason to suspect that the yellow-dressed woman in front of him was Zhou Lin's second rebirth. However, he didn't understand why Zhou Lin would become the yellow-dressed woman and why she would appear in Cyclic Heaven Palace. All of this was a mystery that he needed to solve. Hearing Qinchuan's words, the yellow-dressed woman asked curiously, "Do I really look like the senior sister you mentioned?" Qinchuan nodded and replied, "You really look like my senior sister. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that such a coincidence could happen in this world. I must find out what's going on." Facing Qinchuan's complicated gaze, the yellow-dressed woman whispered, "Maybe there really is a special connection between me and your senior sister." Qinchuan pursed his lips slightly and asked the yellow-dressed woman, "Do you have a name?" The yellow-dressed woman nodded gently and said to Qinchuan, "When I first woke up, I gave myself a name. It's a single word, Lin." Lin. Hearing this name, Qinchuan couldn't help but become a little absent-minded. Was this really God's will? Lin saw the change in Qinchuan's expression and asked curiously, "What's wrong?" "I'm fine." Qinchuan recovered and looked deeply at Lin. "My name is Qinchuan. In the future, please take care of me." After nearly half a month of fighting, the battle for the treasure in Cyclic Heaven Palace had finally come to an end. The great capital prefecture and the Tushan family had reaped the most reward. In the campsite of Tushan family, Tushan Lei looked at Tushan Nana and asked with a frown, "Where is Qinchuan? Why is there still no news after so long?" Recently, Tushan family people had been busy with the treasure hunt, and had no time to pay attention to Qinchuan. But now, the treasure hunt had come to an end. Therefore, Tushan Lei started paying attention to Qinchuan. "I really don't know," Tushan Nana said helplessly. After teacher left the Tower of Babel, she said she had something important to do. She escorted me to Pantheon Palace and then left. She didn't tell me where she went. Hearing Tushan Nana's words, Tushan Lei asked again, "How many floors did Qinchuan reach at that time?" Tushan Lei wasn't the only one who cared about this question. Tushan Hao and Tushan Ming were also very concerned about this question. Now, all forces had regarded Qinchuan as a member of Tushan family. If Qinchuan could achieve a good result in the Tower of Babel, they would also gain face. Hearing this question, Tushan Nana immediately answered excitedly, "Teacher broke Hai Junlin's record and reached the 50th floor." The 50th floor. Hearing Tushan Nana's answer, Tushan Lei immediately laughed. "Good, very good. I thought Qinchuan's limit would be around the 45th floor. I didn't expect him to reach the 50th floor. That's amazing." Tushan Hao sighed. "Unfortunately, he's not a blood relative of our Tushan family. He's just a consecrator." Tushan Ming smiled and said to Tushan Hao, "Although I haven't seen Qinchuan, I've heard a lot about him. I believe that as long as our Tushan family doesn't treat him badly, he won't do anything to hurt our Tushan family." Old Five is right. Tushan Lei nodded and said, "Qinchuan's character is good. Let Nana and Qi interact with him more. There's no need to tie him down. However, I'm very curious about what reward Qinchuan received in this Tower of Babel. Hai Junlan only reached the 42nd floor, but she received a low-grade sacred tool as a reward. Moreover, it's an attack-type one. I think that Qinchuan's reward won't be worse than Hai Junlin's. However, this is Qinchuan's own opportunity. If he doesn't want to talk about it, we shouldn't ask too much. Let nature take its course." Just as Tushan Lei and the other two were talking about Qinchuan, Tushan Qi suddenly walked into the tent and said to them, "Uncles, there's a rumor that the void creatures in the ruins suddenly went on a rampage. They're causing chaos everywhere." Hearing Tushan Qi's words, Tushan Lei slightly frowned and replied, "The void creatures have always been in their respective habitats. In the past few years, they almost never left their habitats on their own accord. Why are they suddenly in chaos? Maybe there's something fishy. However, as long as we stay away from the void creatures' territories, there shouldn't be any big problems." Tushan Hao said to Tushan Lei, "There's nothing in this heaven palace that's worth staying for. Why don't we leave as soon as possible and look for other treasures?" Tushan Lei nodded and said, "Besides leaving some people to continue looking for the protectors, The others, rumble. Before Tushan Lei could finish his words, a violent roar suddenly came from outside the tent. Following that, there was a commotion. Hearing the commotion outside, everyone's expression changed slightly. They quickly got up and walked out of the tent to check the situation. Tushan Lei looked at the thousands of dark purple figures diving down from the sky. His expression suddenly changed. Why did so many void creatures suddenly appear here? Tushan Hao exclaimed, "They're coming for us." Pass down the order. Everyone assemble and retreat. Tushan Lei made a prompt decision. Facing so many void creatures, they definitely weren't their opponents. They had to retreat as soon as possible. Moreover, they had to retreat from the ruins and return to the outside world. Just as the Tushan clan was attacked by the void creatures, the other forces were also attacked by the void creatures. It was as if all the void creatures in the ruins had turned out in full force in an instant and quickly occupied most of the places in the ruins. No one knew what was going on, but all the forces came up with the same response strategy, and that was to retreat. Return to the outside world through the teleportation array. However, no one knew that the teleportation array that led to the outside world had been completely occupied by the void creatures. The people who stayed here had all become the void creatures' food. Their escape route had been completely blocked by the void creatures. Chapter 10-12. Bang. Qin Chuan smashed the void creature in front of him into the ground with a single punch. The turbulent spiritual energy fluctuation directly tore the void creature into pieces. Qin Chuan frowned as he looked at the traces left behind by the void creature's death. This is already the 6th void creature we've encountered. It's very strange, there shouldn't be any void creatures here. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lin, who was standing at the side, nodded gently and replied, "In the past, I've been traveling around the ruins and have seen these void creatures before. However, they all live in specific locations and rarely go out. This incident is very strange. I also feel that it's strange, but it's better for us to find the main group as soon as possible and join them." Qin Chuan said to Lin, "If the two of us encounter a large number of void creatures while traveling outside, it'll be troublesome." As they spoke, Qin Chuan and Lin continued to move forward. When they saw the void creatures circling in the sky, Qin Chuan's expression suddenly turned ugly. They seemed to have been surrounded by the void creatures. Is it because there are so many void creatures, or are we being targeted? Qin Chuan couldn't figure out this problem for the time being because he didn't have time to think. The void creatures had already discovered their tracks and pounced towards them. Lin stepped back. Before Qin Chuan could finish his words, Lin, who was standing beside him, had already taken a step forward. She raised her hands and aimed at the sky. A golden light gushed out from Lin's palms and turned into thousands of sharp blades that pierced through the sky. In an instant, thousands of void creatures were killed. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan couldn't help but be stunned. Along the way, Lin hadn't displayed her strength at all. He almost forgot that Lin had the acute metal path. These void creatures are endless. We have to think of a way to break through and find out what's going on. While they were talking, Lin had already returned to Qin Chuan's side. She looked at the slightly stunned Qin Chuan and asked, "What happened to you?" "I'm fine, I just suddenly thought of something." Qin Chuan recovered and smiled at Lin. "Let's go." As Qin Chuan and Lin advanced, the number of void creatures they encountered increased. At first, they relied on Lin's strength to clear the way. Later, they simply concealed themselves and advanced stealthily. By the time they arrived in the vicinity of Cyclic Sky Palace, 3 days had passed. Looking at the massive crater in Cyclic Sky Palace, Qin Chuan was dumbfounded. "I remember when we escaped, Flip Sky Palace was still a palace. How did it become like this?" Lin scowled as she looked at the crater in front of her and told Qin Chuan, "This shouldn't be man-made, and no one would waste time and effort to do something like this. Could it be the work of a void creature? Qin Chuan frowned slightly. He closed his eyes and sensed for a moment, then said to Lin, "The surroundings are filled with the aura of void creatures. I didn't notice it before, but after sensing it carefully, I found that the aura of void creatures in this crater is particularly obvious and strong." Qin Chuan thought of Zerg's General Kagid, who was sealed in the Black Moon mountain range, and his expression couldn't help but become somewhat solemn. He said in a deep voice, "Could there be something sealed under Cyclic Sky Palace? For example, a very powerful void creature?" After hearing Qin Chuan's guess, Lin pondered for a moment and replied, "It's not impossible. Let's go. We'll continue to look for others. As long as we find others, I believe we can find out what happened." Qin Chuan said to Lin, "Now that the ruins are in chaos, they will definitely break out in the direction of the transmission array. If we follow this path, we can catch up to them. But, are you willing to leave the ruins with me and go to the outside world?" After hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lin took a deep look at Qin Chuan and said, "I want to know what my past is like. Before I can confirm whether I'm your senior sister or not, I will stay by your side." Qin Chuan smiled and said to Lin, "That's great." Lin looked at Qin Chuan and asked, "I want to know what your relationship with that senior sister is like." Facing Lin's question, the smile on Qin Chuan's face faded slightly. He looked at Lin very seriously and replied, "Senior sister is the person who led me on the path of cultivation. She has given me a lot of help and support. She is my most respected teacher and also my best friend." In an extremely large valley, tens of thousands of people were trapped within. The void creatures that covered the mountains and plains caused everyone to feel extremely pressured. The despair in their hearts could not be stopped, and panic spread along with it. "We have to break out. Staying here is just waiting for death." Hai Sang looked at the seemingly endless void creatures with a gloomy face. If they continued to stay here, the void creatures that gathered would only increase. They could not resist at all. "It's easy for you to say. If leaving is really as easy as you say, we would have left long ago." Tu Shanlei snorted coldly. "Now that we are surrounded by these void creatures, we will have to pay a heavy price to break out. Moreover, from the direction where these void creatures are gathering, it's obvious that there are more of them near the transmission array. I suspect that these void creatures have already occupied the transmission array and blocked our escape route." "That's just your suspicion. You haven't seen it with your own eyes," Hai Sang retorted. "If we continue to stay here according to your plan, how long do you think we can last? Since we are going to die sooner or later, why don't we fight?" When the people around heard Hai Sang and Tu Shanlei's words, they felt that what they said was very reasonable. The current situation had not reached the most dangerous moment, so defending might be the best choice. However, if they waited until the situation became very bad to break out, it might be too late. Just when everyone was in a dilemma about who to support, an extremely sharp hissing sound suddenly came from afar. Everyone subconsciously looked in the direction of the sound. When they saw the huge figure of the void creature that was at least 10 meters tall, everyone could not help but gasp. It was their first time seeing such a huge void creature. This void creature is so huge. Its strength seems to be at the level of an overlord. Someone in the crowd said such a sentence, causing everyone's heart to sink to the bottom. If this big guy in front of them was really an overlord-level void creature, then they wouldn't be able to escape death no matter how they tried to defend or break out of the encirclement. In front of an overlord-level enemy, all struggles were useless. Chapter 10-13. Just when everyone was shocked and in despair by the strength of this huge void creature, 3 figures suddenly charged out from the encirclement of the void creatures and landed in front of them. Everyone subconsciously looked at these 3 people, and when they recognized who they were stunned. Sunset Venerable? Venerable Long River? And Venerable Guyan? How did you guys? Everyone was shocked when they saw the three venerables who were covered in blood and had weak auras. The three of them were definitely the strongest among them. Just who had injured them to such a state? Everyone involuntarily looked at the gigantic void creature again, as if they had found the answer to their question. Three venerables. Seeing this, Hai Sang and Tu Shanlei hurriedly stepped forward and welcomed the three into their temporary base. The Sunset Venerable sucked in a deep breath and said to them in an extremely hoarse voice, "We came across that big guy on the way to the teleportation formation and fought with him. The three of us were no match for him at all, so we could only fight as we retreated. After that, we arrived here." Hearing Sunset Supremacy's explanation, Hai Sang hurriedly asked, "How strong is this big guy?" Sunset Venerable replied, "This big guy's strength is at least at the peak of the insightful void realm. Otherwise, the three of us wouldn't have been beaten so badly." Venerable Long River, who had lost an arm, panted and said softly, "This big guy's ability is very strange. You guys must be careful." Tu Shanlei laughed bitterly and said helplessly, "Venerable, even the three of you couldn't defeat him. What's the point of being careful?" Sunset Venerable and the other two venerables' expressions turned ugly when they heard Tu Shanlei's words. Just as Tu Shanlei had said, in the face of absolute strength, they couldn't avoid the fate of being crushed no matter how careful they were. "But no matter what, we have to try our best." Hai Sang looked at Tu Shanlei and said, "Could it be that the Tushan family only has this much courage?" "What nonsense are you talking about? Don't try to provoke me. Although this big guy is terrifying, it's not enough to scare the Tushan family to death." Tu Shanlei snorted coldly and continued, "By then, if any one of our Tushan family dares to desert, I will be the first one to kill him. Let's not talk about this for now. Why do I feel that this big guy doesn't seem to have any intention of attacking us?" Tu Shan Hao looked at the big guy in confusion. Not only the big guy, the other void creatures didn't seem to want to attack them either, which was strange. Hearing Tu Shan Hao's words, everyone realized that although the void creatures had surrounded them, they had no intention of attacking. Could it be that these void creatures had other plans? If they could live in peace with the void creatures, they would definitely be willing to do so. However, they knew that this was only their wishful thinking. The void creatures would never let them go. Just as everyone was thinking about this, all the void creatures that had gathered here suddenly screamed. That sharp voice seemed to be able to pierce through the sky, causing everyone to frown and subconsciously seal off their hearing. The screams of the void creatures spread out in all directions with the valley as the center. All the void creatures that heard the screams screamed as well. In just a short while, the entire ruin was filled with the screams of the void creatures. Everyone's screams converged in the direction of the valley, forming a dark purple vortex in the sky, emitting an extremely shocking evil energy wave. "What are they doing?" Tu Shan Ming looked up at the vortex in the sky, his eyes filled with horror. They seemed to want to use some kind of ritual to open a teleportation channel. Tu Shanlei's face was extremely gloomy. He said in a deep voice, "There might be more void creatures waiting to descend on the other side of this teleportation channel." When everyone heard Tu Shanlei's guess, their faces suddenly turned into horror. If Tu Shanlei's guess was right, the purpose of these void creatures was not just to destroy them. The target of these void creatures might be Tron Nebula. Just as everyone was thinking about this, a portal slowly appeared in the middle of the dark purple vortex. An extremely special energy wave was emitted from the portal, making everyone feel extremely uncomfortable and even a little disgusted. Whoosh! Several dark purple tentacles suddenly stretched out from the other side of the portal and grabbed the edge of the portal. They straightened themselves and tried to crawl over from the other side of the portal. Finally, as the portal continued to expand, the tentacle creature's body gradually crawled out of the portal. It was like a huge octopus, but its appearance was even more ferocious and evil than an octopus. Its cry was like a baby's cry, strange and eerie. Everyone in the valley looked at the tentacled creature that had already crawled out of the door, and their eyes were filled with horror. This is a void tentacle. It's the war machine of the void tribe, the void tentacle. Tushan Lei finally recognized what kind of existence this tentacle creature was. It was also because of this that he was completely in despair. The appearance of the void tentacle meant that the void tribe would descend on this land and invade Tron Nebula. It's actually a void tentacle. The Sunset Knight's eyes almost popped out of their socket. What is the void tribe trying to do? Are they planning to start another universe war? The appearance of the void tentacle made everyone panic. At this moment, everyone realized why these void creatures did not attack them. It was because these void creatures were sacrificing them to the void tentacle. We must stop the void tribe's plan. Tushan Hao gritted his teeth. Destroy this portal and stop the void tentacle from descending. You're oversimplifying things. It's impossible for us to destroy this portal, but we can break out now while these void creatures are waiting for the void tentacle to descend. Hai Sang looked at Tushan Lei and said in a low voice, If we continue to wait now, everything will be over. Break out. Tushan Lei made a prompt decision. Everyone, listen up. Immediately break out in the direction of the teleportation portal. Even if we die, we must teleport out and spread the news to the outside world. Hearing Tushan Lei's words, all the powerful cultivators in the Dongshu stage immediately took action and attacked the void creatures around them. The soul-forming stage cultivators followed closely behind. The group of cultivators charged towards the void creatures with the belief that they would die. Chapter 10:14. Qin Chuan and Lin stood on the plain, staring at the dark purple vortex and the void tentacles crawling out from it in shock. They couldn't help but tremble. What is that? What a terrifying and evil aura! Qin Chuan swore that he had never seen such a terrifying creature. In front of this creature, he was as insignificant as an ant, or even a speck of dust. Facing Qin Chuan's question, Lin shook her head and said, I don't know what it is either. It's also my first time seeing it. But judging from its aura, it should be a void creature, and an extremely powerful one at that. Hearing Lin's calm words, Qin Chuan's emotions also calmed down. He felt that his performance just now was a little too embarrassing. He was actually frightened by that void creature. But then again, there were very few people who could be as calm as Lin in the face of such a terrifying existence. Judging from the direction, that should be the only way to the teleportation portal. Qin Chuan frowned and said, Such a sudden change, could the main force be there? Let's go and take a look. Lin said to Qin Chuan, but it's best to be careful. Qin Chuan nodded. In the face of such a situation, a single person's strength was too insignificant and insignificant. If they weren't careful, they might really die. Just as Qin Chuan and Lin were heading towards the valley, the people led by the Tushan family and the metropolis residents were trying their best to break out of the encirclement. They didn't want to kill many void creatures, but they just wanted to get away from the void tentacles as soon as possible and reach the teleportation portal as soon as possible. After realizing their intentions, the huge void creature's face couldn't help but reveal a gloomy expression. He actually spoke in human language and ordered the void creatures around him, Stop these flesh and blood. Once the void tentacles descend, they can't go without flesh and blood. Following his order, all the void creatures moved at once. They howled madly and pounced on the people who were breaking out of the encirclement. Facing the brutal attacks of the void creatures, the people's momentum of breaking out of the encirclement suddenly slowed down and became difficult. Sunset. Seeing that the void tentacles were about to descend, Sunset Venerable roared and unleashed his ultimate skill, Sunset. In an instant, He killed thousands of void creatures and greatly relieved the pressure on everyone. Venerable Long River and Venerable Lone Smoke didn't want to fall behind either. They unleashed their ultimate skills to open up a path for everyone, making the difficult situation easier again. Just as everyone was trying their best to break out of the encirclement, the void tentacles finally crawled out of the portal and completely descended into the ruins. Wow! The moment the void tentacle descended, it opened its mouth and let out an extremely strange cry. Its tentacles stretched out in all directions, and the suction cups on the tentacles erupted with an extremely powerful suction force. It actually sucked in everything it touched, turning them into food for the void tentacle. Seeing that the void creature launched an attack that did not differentiate between friend and foe, the huge void creature's face turned extremely ugly. Finally, it could not help but want to attack personally. Foolish people, it's your honor to die in the hands of the great Samson. The void creature called Samson raised his hand and released a dark purple energy wave towards the crowd. The evil energy landed on the crowd and exploded, instantly killing hundreds of people. The thick smell of blood immediately attracted the attention of the void tentacle, causing it to extend most of its tentacles towards the crowd. Facing the attack of the void tentacle, everyone's face was filled with extreme fear. Just as everyone was about to lose all hope, a figure suddenly appeared in the air and blocked all of the void tentacle's attacks. Sigh, this day has finally come. The figure looked at the people who died tragically on the ground with a complicated gaze. He sighed faintly, as if he was sad for the fate of these people. When he saw the figure, Samson's eyes flashed with anger. He roared, "Wang Yangfeng, you're still alive." Everyone was shocked when they heard Samson's roar. This mysterious person who suddenly appeared was actually the record holder of the Tong Tian Tower, Wang Yangfeng. The high humans had disappeared for countless years, but he was actually still alive. Samson, when I sealed you back then, I thought that you would die in the seal. I didn't expect your life force to be so strong, allowing you to live until now. Wang Yangfeng looked at Samson, his eyes filled with helplessness. He was now just a remnant soul. It was impossible for him to seal or defeat Samson again. When Samson heard Wang Yangfeng's words, he suddenly laughed loudly. His laughter was filled with pride and arrogance. I thought you were still alive. Turns out you're just a remnant soul. What can you do in your current state? Samson sneered. I lost to you back then. Today, I'll completely wipe out your remnant soul and send you to hell. I didn't appear today to fight with you. Wang Yangfeng glanced at Samson, then turned his gaze to the crowd and said softly, I'll open up a path for you to survive. As for whether you can survive, and how many of you can survive, it'll all depend on your own luck. Everyone looked at Wang Yangfeng, who was hovering in the air, with complicated expressions on their faces. There was the ecstasy of surviving a calamity, the fear of being at a loss, and the shock of seeing the high humans. Wang Yangfeng, what are you trying to do? Samson was furious when he heard Wang Yangfeng's words. Don't even think about ruining my plan. Wang Yangfeng had no intention of responding to Samson's roar. He looked into the distance and finally fixed his gaze on Qin Chuan, who was rushing over. He said softly, You must live well. Don't die. As soon as Wang Yangfeng finished speaking, a vast and mighty force burst out from Wang Yangfeng's body, causing the entire ruin to tremble. Heaven and earth began to collapse. Samson was shocked when he saw this. He roared angrily, It's great destruction. You're just a remnant soul. How can you use great destruction? However, no matter how shocked Samson was, he could not change the fact that the ruin was already in an irreversible state. Just as Samson was about to wipe out Wang Yangfeng's remnant soul to vent his anger, Wang Yangfeng's remnant soul suddenly dissipated, turning into countless specks of light and dissipating. Rumble! Following a violent explosion, the ruin was completely destroyed. Everyone was pushed back into the cosmic vortex by the impact of the ruins' destruction, involuntarily flying into the distance. Chapter 10-15. In the turbulence, Qinchuan had no choice but to borrow the Holy Monarch armor from Little Armored Dragon to protect himself from harm. Meanwhile, Lin once again turned into a golden stream of light and fell into Qinchuan's hand to prevent herself from being separated from Qinchuan. Whoosh! Qinchuan tried his best to stabilize his body and quickly rushed out of the cosmic vortex. After rushing out of the cosmic whirlpool, Qinchuan turned his head back and looked at the cosmic whirlpool behind him. Looking at the people and void creatures struggling in the turbulence, his face was filled with joy. If it wasn't for the protection of the Holy King armor, perhaps he would have become one of the people struggling in the turbulence, and his life would be in danger at any time. At this time, Lin also turned into her human form. She looked at the turbulence and said to Qinchuan, "This is the spatial turbulence produced after the destruction of an independent small world. If one doesn't understand the laws of space, it will be very difficult to survive in this spatial turbulence." Before Lin could finish her sentence, a high-pitched cry suddenly erupted from the space turbulence. The void tentacle had broken free from the space turbulence and arrived in the universe. Seeing this scene, Qinchuan was shocked. At the same time, a light suddenly lit up in the distance. It turned out that a spaceship parked outside the cosmic vortex had discovered the void tentacle and launched an attack on it. Qinchuan saw this and immediately put away the Holy Monarch armor on him. Then, he quickly flew in the direction of the spaceship with Lin. However, before he could fly far, a thick void tentacle violently whipped the spaceship. In an instant, the spaceship was smashed into pieces and turned into a pile of debris. This, although Qinchuan had expected the void tentacle to be extremely powerful, he did not expect the spaceship to not even be able to withstand a single attack from the void tentacle. Originally, the other spaceships wanted to go closer to support, but after seeing this scene, they immediately retreated and did not dare to continue approaching the void tentacle. At this time, a tall figure suddenly appeared beside the void tentacle. It was Thompson, who had just escaped from the spatial turbulence. "The Great Void Empire will destroy you." Thompson's angry roar resounded in the universe, announcing the arrival of the Void Empire to Tron Nebula. Returning to Tron City once again, Qinchuan's mood was extremely complicated. He did not expect that the exploration of the ancient human ruins this time would cause such a terrifying incident. "Mr. Qin." A staff of the Tushan clan suddenly appeared beside Qinchuan and said respectfully, "The clan leader is waiting for you in the manor. The Grand Elder and Second Elder have also come out of seclusion." Hearing the staff member's words, Qinchuan nodded gently. "I understand. We will return to the manor immediately." The staff member turned to Lin, who was standing beside Qinchuan, and asked, "Is this Mr. Qin's friend?" "She's my best friend." Qinchuan asked the staff, "Can I bring her back to the manor?" "Since she's your friend, of course, there's no problem." Soon, the staff brought Qinchuan and Lin onto the spaceship to Tushan Mountain Manor. When he saw Tushan Ing waiting for him at the starport, Qinchuan was both surprised and reasonable. After all, he was the only survivor who returned to Tushan Mountain Manor. Tushan Ing must have a lot of things to ask him. When Qinchuan walked down from the spaceship, Tushan Ing immediately came up to him and asked Qinchuan with a very serious expression, "What happened in the ancient human ruins?" When he first received the message from Qinchuan, Tushan Ing did not believe it at first. However, as the news gradually spread in Tron Capital, and Tushan Lei and the others were still missing, he finally realized the seriousness of the matter. Faced with Tushan Ying's question, Qinchuan replied with a serious expression, "It's a long story. To put it simply, the void creatures in the ruins suddenly went on a rampage, and a leader appeared. This leader led all the void creatures to open a portal, and a void tentacle descended, intending to invade Tron Nebula. Originally, Qin Chuan didn't know much about this, but after he was rescued by the spaceship, he asked the other survivors who had broken free from the turbulence of the universe about what had happened. Only then did he know about Samson and the void tentacles. He also knew that the reason they were able to survive was all because of Wang Yangfeng. After receiving this information, Qin Chuan immediately contacted Tu Shan-ing and told him everything. "Have you seen the third elder and the others?" Tu Shan-ing said in a deep voice. "They should have the ability to break free from the space turbulence." Hearing Tu Shan-ying's words, Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said in a low voice, "They might be able to break free from the space turbulence, but what if they encounter a void creature?" Tu Shan-ying's expression suddenly turned ugly. What Qin Chuan said was not impossible, but if it really happened, Tu Shan-lei and the others would be in danger. "Let's go to the meeting room. The first elder and second elder are waiting for you." Tu Shan-ing took a deep breath and said to Qin Chuan, "My attitude may have been a little bad before, I hope you can understand my feelings." Qin Chuan nodded and said to Tu Shan-ing, "Of course I can understand the patriarch's feelings. To be honest, my heart is still very heavy. Everything happened too suddenly." Qin Chuan was telling the truth. The sudden outbreak of the void creatures was too sudden, so no one had the time to make a timely and correct response. If not, they would not have suffered such heavy losses and almost been wiped out. In the meeting room, Tu Shan-ing bowed slightly to the first elder and second elder, Tu Shan-xiu, who were sitting at the head of the table, and said, "First elder, second elder, this is Qin Chuan, one of the survivors of this incident. He basically knows everything that happened in the ruins." Hearing Tu Shan-ying's words, Tu Shan-han slowly turned his head and looked at Qin Chuan. He frowned slightly and said, "Has the Void Empire really descended?" Qin Chuan nodded and answered, "I saw it with my own eyes. The Void Empire has indeed descended." Although Qin Chuan didn't have a clear understanding of the Void Empire until now, it didn't prevent him from knowing about it. It seems that the Void Empire has recovered from the last failure. Tu Shan-xiu said in a deep voice, "But this time, the Void Empire has descended with the help of the ancient human ruins. It may become a reason for others to attack us. Humph! Now that we are facing a great enemy, if they still want to fight among themselves, I will fight with them." Tu Shan-han snorted and said, "If there is such a short-sighted person in Trong City, I will kill him even at the cost of my old life." Chapter 10:16. Qin Chuan looked at Great Elder Tu Shan-han and asked curiously, "Great Elder, may I ask what kind of existence the Void Empire is?" Qin Chuan had read many books, including introductions about various forces in the universe, but he had never seen anything about the Void Empire. The Void Empire seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, without any warning. Hearing Qin Chuan's question, Tu Shan-han took a deep look at Qin Chuan and responded, "Young people nowadays haven't experienced the war back then, so their understanding of the Void Empire is limited to the fact that they are evil creatures. Besides, many books don't have any records about the Void Empire, so it's normal that you don't know about the existence of the Void Empire." When Qin Chuan heard this, he immediately said, "First Elder, please enlighten me." Tu Shan-han sighed and said to Qin Chuan, "Everything in this world has two sides. Where there is light, there is darkness. Where there is sky, there is earth. Where there is sea, there is desert. Things are like this, and so is the universe. If our universe is the positive side, then the Void Empire is the negative side." Qin Chuan couldn't help but reveal a wisp of astonishment when he heard this, and he asked, "The Void Empire is the opposite of our universe?" Tu Shan-han nodded and answered, "Yes, the negative side. At least in our eyes, they are the negative side. Perhaps in the eyes of the Void Empire, we are the negative side. But this is not important. What is important is that the universe ruled by the Void Empire and our universe are in different planes, but they are connected. Through special means, we can open transmission channels to travel between the two universes. A long, long time ago, the Void Empire discovered the existence of our universe and launched a great attack on us. Although we won that battle and defeated the Void Empire, we suffered a great loss. Hundreds of universe overlords were killed. After that battle, all the star clusters suffered a great loss. They were all recuperating. However, just as we recovered, the Void Empire came again. After paying the same heavy price, we defeated the Void Empire once again. It has only been 1,000 years since then, and we have yet to recover our strength, but the Void Empire has once again descended upon us. I suspect that they will come more and more frequently, until they defeat us completely and occupy our universe. Normally, unless the cultivator had reached the Dongshu stage or above, very few cultivators could survive for more than 1,000 years. Because of this, very few people knew about the Void Empire. Even if there were rumors, they were limited to a small circle. Hearing Tushan Han's words, Qin Chuan was deeply shocked. He thought that his greatest enemy was Zerg. He didn't expect that there was an even more terrifying existence like the Void Empire. They could easily start a war that involved the entire universe. Under such a situation, the power of an individual was insignificant. Now that the Void Empire has suffered a great loss in the space turbulence, maybe we can seize the opportunity to defeat them. Qin Chuan said to Tushan Han, "This may be our best chance. If you can think of this, so can we. But who do you think is powerful enough to defeat the leader of the Void creatures, Po? And who can kill the Void tentacles?" Tushan Han sighed and said to Qin Chuan, "The most powerful being in Tron Nebula is the governor of the metropolis government, Hai Wudi. Hai Wudi is only at the peak of the Dongshu stage, barely on par with Po. Second Elder and I are both at the peak of the Dongshu stage. Even if the three of us join forces, we may not be able to defeat Po, not to mention that they have even more powerful Void tentacles." Tushan Xiu also sighed and said, "If the Void Empire's arrival happens somewhere in the celestial cluster, there may be universe overlords who will kill them directly. But our place is too remote. By the time universe overlords get the news and come here, I think Tron Nebula will be no more." Hearing Tushan Xiu's words, Qin Chuan's expression turned extremely ugly. If that was the case, wouldn't they be doomed? They wouldn't be able to resist at all. "But there's no need to be pessimistic," Tushan Han said. "After all, the Void Empire hasn't launched an attack on us yet." Tushan Ing said, "The remnant soul of the ancient human master destroyed the relic. Although it caused us heavy casualties, it also caused the Void Empire heavy casualties. They don't have enough troops to attack for the time being. They will definitely open the teleportation channel again and summon an army. Before that, we can definitely deal with it." "What you said makes sense," said Tushan Han. "But how to deal with this depends on Hai Wudi's attitude," he said. "I'll go find Hai Wudi now and ask for his opinion." Before Tushan Han's voice died away, he had already disappeared. He must have gone to find Hai Wudi. Second Elder Tushan Xiu said to Tushan Ing, "Big Brother and I won't stay in seclusion anymore. If there's anything you need us to do, just come find us." Now that such a thing had happened, Tushan Xiu was no longer in the mood to stay in seclusion. Even if she forced herself to stay in seclusion, it would be difficult for her to comprehend anything. "Yes," Tushan Ing agreed. Now that everyone was in a state of panic, he should think about how to comfort his subordinate. After Second Elder Tushan Xiu left, Tushan Ing turned to Qin Chuan and said to Qin Chuan, "You've worked hard during this period of time. You should go and have a good rest. If there's anything, I'll come find you again." Qin Chuan nodded, then left the conference room with Lin and walked towards his residence. On the way back, Qin Chuan said to Lin with some concern, "The situation is unstable now. I need to go back to Sane Galaxy and bring little Z and the others back. Originally, Qin Chuan wanted to wait until he had a firm foothold in the Tushan family before thinking about bringing Lu Zi and the others back. But now that the Void Empire had arrived, danger was everywhere. No one knew when the war would break out. He had to bring Lu Zi and the others to a safe place. On the way back, Qin Chuan briefly introduced the people around him to Lin. Lin knew that Lu Zi was Qin Chuan's girlfriend, the person Qin Chuan loved and cared about the most. So, she was not surprised that Qin Chuan would make such a decision. Do you need me to go with you? In order to prevent accidents, you'd better come with me. After all, my strength alone is still too weak. Qin Chuan's current strength was enough to move unhindered in Sane Galaxy, but in order to prevent accidents, it was best for Lin to go with him. Chapter 10-17 Sai Na Galaxy, Snow City. A mysterious practitioner covered in a black robe stood at the edge of the ruins of the Snow Palace. He respectfully said to the girl in a black dress in front of him, "Venerable, we have investigated clearly. When the Snow Palace exploded, Ambassador Oman was indeed here and disappeared along with the explosion." Hearing the subordinate's report, the girl said faintly, "That was not an ordinary explosion. Oman self-destructed his body. I am very curious to know who in the Sai Na Galaxy could force Oman to this point." The strongest person in the Sai Na Galaxy, Odyssey the Great, was already under Oman's control and had died long ago. During the period of Oman's death, no one from the outside world entered the Sai Na Galaxy. According to common sense, there should be no one in the Sai Na Galaxy who could be Oman's opponent. Venerable, I also found that 3 suspicious people appeared in Snow City almost at the same time. They are Prince Ao Feng of the Sai Na Galaxy, General Zhao Deng, and Talisman Formation Master Qin Chuan. The subordinate said to the girl, "We suspect that the death of Ambassador Oman is related to these 3 people. If it is as you have analyzed, then Oman is too stupid to die in the hands of these people." The girl sneered, "Let's go. We will set off for Sai Na City to see the general who stayed behind." Sai Na City. Zhao Deng stood on the roof, looking at the sealed insect king in the sky with a worried expression. He was very sad. Not long ago, Ao Feng told him that Ao Feng would explore the ancient human ruins with some friends. At that time, he tried to persuade Ao Feng to give up the idea, but Ao Feng was unwilling. Ao Feng believed that this was an opportunity that God had specially arranged for him. If he could grasp it, he would be able to advance to the Dongshu stage in a short period of time. Then, he would be able to truly take charge of the imperial family and make the Sai Na Galaxy truly submit to him. Zhao Deng did not try to persuade Ao Feng again. However, some time ago, the life plate Ao Feng left in the imperial city was broken. The broken life plate meant that Ao Feng had met with misfortune. Prince Ao Feng has passed away. The bloodline of the royal family is completely broken. If this matter is spread, it will definitely cause chaos in the Sai Na Galaxy. Zhao Deng sighed helplessly. With the first prince's talent, even if you don't go to the Antiquity Human Clan's ruins, you can still advance to the Dongshu stage. Why are you in such a hurry? Just as Zhao Deng was worrying about the future of the Sane Galaxy, a petite figure suddenly appeared in front of him and looked him up and down arrogantly. Seeing this young girl who had suddenly appeared in front of him, Zhao Deng couldn't help but ask warily, "Who are you?" "You don't need to know who I am. You only need to answer a few of my questions and I'll leave." "If you don't want to cooperate, I don't mind releasing the seal on that big guy and letting it have some fun in Sai Na City," the girl said indifferently. Hearing the young lady's words, Zhao Deng's expression instantly became extremely solemn. He took a deep look at the young lady and asked, "What question do you want to ask me?" "It's simple." The girl smiled. How did Amen die? Amen? Zhao Deng frowned slightly. I've never heard of this name. The young lady raised her eyebrows slightly and said to Zhao Deng, then I'll explain briefly. Amen is the one who released this big guy. You fought against each other in the Blizzard Palace. Now do you know who I'm talking about? Hearing the young lady's explanation, Zhao Deng's expression changed greatly. He didn't expect this young lady to be here to investigate the death of the black-robed man from Zerg. Seeing Zhao Deng's expression change, the young lady understood everything. Amen's death was indeed related to Zhao Deng. You'd better not think about lying to me, because you don't want to know how heavy the price of lying to me is. The young lady chuckled and waved her hand gently. The stable sound sealing formation was instantly shattered, and the insect king, who had been sealed for months, immediately roared and announced its return to the world. Seeing the young lady's means, Zhao Deng couldn't help but feel a touch of despair. The fact that the young lady could destroy the sound sealing formation so easily meant that she was definitely at the Dongshu stage, even stronger than Amen. If he dared to lie to such a person, perhaps the entire Sai Na city would be destroyed. The price was too heavy and he couldn't bear it. I'll answer your question, but you have to promise me that no harm will come to Sai Na city. Zhao Deng looked at the young lady in despair. If you have any anger, you can take it out on me. What a brave man! The young lady laughed. Tell me, how did Amen die? Amen died under the joint attack of me, the eldest prince, and Qin Chuan. Zhao Deng said to the young lady. The reason why we attacked Amen was to rescue Odyssey the Great. In the end, Zhao Deng chose to lie. The matter of the rune stone was of great importance. If it was leaked, it would definitely bring unnecessary trouble to Qin Chuan. Moreover, the lie he made was reasonable and there were no loopholes. He was confident that he could fool the young lady. How disappointing! I thought you would tell the truth, but I didn't expect you to still choose to lie. The young lady looked at Zhao Deng sharply. Under Zhao Deng's frightened and regretful gaze, she threw the insect king onto the ground of Sai Na city. No. Zhao Deng's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He wanted to stop it, but there was nothing he could do. The young lady had sealed him on the rooftop and wanted him to witness the destruction of Sai Na city with his own eyes. On the spaceship heading to the Sai Na system from the capital of Trump, Qin Chuan was cultivating. Suddenly, he felt uneasy and had to stop his cultivation. Lin, who was reading a book beside him, noticed Qin Chuan's movements and asked, "What's wrong?" Qin Chuan frowned and said to Lin, "I suddenly had a telepathic feeling. Something bad seems to have happened." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lin said to Qin Chuan, "The book once said that a practitioner's sixth sense is extremely accurate. If you feel that something bad has happened, then something bad must have happened to you. Perhaps it has something to do with the Sai Na system. I suggest you contact your girlfriend in advance." Qin Chuan nodded and said to Lin, "I will." Just as Qin Chuan was about to contact Lu Zi sent him a message first. After reading the content of the message, Qin Chuan's expression suddenly became extremely ugly. The seal of the insect king in Sai Na city suddenly broke. Sai Na city is being ravaged by the insect king and has fallen into chaos. Is the sudden breaking of the seal related to you? Are you okay? Chapter 10:18. Dear passengers, due to some unforeseen circumstances, this flight cannot proceed to Seine City according to the original plan. The flight will be diverted to Rose City. Please prepare for transfer. The passengers were not surprised when they heard the announcement, as they had learned about what had happened in Seine City not long ago. It was normal for the spaceship to be unable to proceed to Seine City. If the spaceship had continued to proceed to Seine City according to its original plan, they would have been surprised. As for why the spaceship chose Rose City as a temporary stop, it was naturally because of Qin Chuan. As a price, he had to pay 5,000 star stones. When the spaceship docked at Rose City's starport, it was already the third day after the tragedy in Seine City. Qin Chuan and Lin left the spaceship and went straight to the Grand Duke's mansion. Lu Zi, who had been notified in advance by Qin Chuan, was waiting at the entrance of the Grand Duke's mansion. When she saw Qin Chuan arrive, she wanted to give Qin Chuan a long-awaited hug, but when she saw Lin standing beside Qin Chuan, she was stunned. "Zhou Lin? Why are you here?" Lu Zi looked at Lin, who was standing beside Qin Chuan, in shock. How did a dead person come back from the dead? And how did she leave the land of exile and come here? Lin smiled at Lu Zi's shock and replied, "Sorry, I'm not Zhou Lin. I'm Lin." Lu Zi was still confused by Lin's explanation, but Bai Yu, who was standing beside her, saw through everything. She said to Lu Zi, "She's not Zhou Lin. Her aura is wrong. She's not human." "Let's go in and talk," Qin Chuan said to Lu Zi. "I'll explain everything to you." The group entered the Grand Duke's mansion and went to Lu Zi's office. After Qin Chuan sat down, he explained Lin's identity to Lu Zi. After hearing Qin Chuan's explanation, Lu Zi still felt that this matter was too strange and too strange. "If you hadn't told me this yourself, I would have found it hard to believe that there could be such a coincidence in this world." Lu Zi exclaimed and said to Qin Chuan, "Perhaps this is the best arrangement that God has made for you." Qin Chuan nodded gently. Zhou Lin's death had always been a regret in his heart, and Lin's appearance gave him the opportunity to make up for it. "By the way, did you suddenly come back this time because of what happened in Seine City?" After learning about Lin, Lu Zi began to care about the purpose of Qin Chuan's return. If possible, she wanted to spend more time with Qin Chuan. "My original plan was to bring you out of the Seine Galaxy and to Trong Capital. I only found out about Seine City from you on the way back." Qin Chuan frowned and said to Lu Zi, "According to common sense, there shouldn't be any problems with the sound sealing formation." Qin Chuan personally sealed the Insect King. He had enough confidence in the sound sealing formation. As long as Zhao Deng followed his instructions and provided the sound sealing formation with enough sound every day, the sound sealing formation wouldn't be broken. There were only two possibilities for the sound sealing formation to be broken. First, Zhao Deng didn't follow his instructions, causing problems with the sound sealing formation. Second, a powerful cultivator broke the sound sealing formation. Qin Chuan had some understanding of Zhao Deng, so after thinking about it, Qin Chuan felt that the second possibility was more likely. "You want to take me with you?" Lu Zi was pleasantly surprised when she heard this. "Are you serious?" Although life as a Grand Duke was very comfortable, Lu Zi wanted to stay by Qin Chuan's side, even if it meant being exposed to the elements. Seeing the surprise on Lu Zi's face, Qin Chuan smiled bitterly and said, "Don't be happy yet. This might not be a good thing. No matter what happens in the future, as long as I can stay by your side, it's a good thing for me," Lu Zi said to Qin Chuan with a smile. "You've already said it, you can't go back on your words." Qin Chuan saw the happy smile on Lu Zi's face and said to Lu Zi helplessly, "Listen to me first." Qin Chuan originally thought that after he told Lu Zi about the Void Empire's invasion, Lu Zi would be very worried. However, to his surprise, Lu Zi's expression was normal, as if she didn't care about this matter at all. "You don't seem to be afraid at all." Qin Chuan looked at Lu Zi with a puzzled gaze. "Aren't you afraid that we will die in this disaster?" "Qin Chuan, do you know yourself?" Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan with a smile. "I think you don't know yourself well enough." Qin Chuan was startled when he heard this and asked in confusion, "Why do you say that?" "Qin Chuan, think about it carefully. Since we met until today, how many dangers have we experienced? When have we ever had the confidence to win and survive?" Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan with a serious and worshipful gaze and said to Qin Chuan, "Whether it was when we passed through the Black Moon Forest to enter the school, or during the 6 Great Academies ranking competition, or even later in the Air Center and when we faced General Kagid, you have never disappointed us. I believe that whether it is now or in the future, you will not disappoint us either. Hearing Lu Zi's words, Qin Chuan looked at Lu Zi with a complicated gaze and asked, "Do you trust me that much? You are the person I love the most. My trust in you is unconditional." Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan affectionately. "As long as you are by my side, I will not be afraid even if I have to go to hell." "Hey, that's enough, you two." Lin, who was sitting at the side, sighed. "I've just learned what it means to flaunt your love and show off your affection. I didn't expect to experience it so soon." Bai Yu looked at Lu Zi and said helplessly, "I've long gotten used to it." Whenever Lu Zi is in front of Qin Chuan, she becomes a love-struck fool, a fool. Hearing Lin and Bai Yu's words, Lu Zi blushed slightly and said softly, "That's love." Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Lu Zi, "I will take you away from here, but before that I need to go to Sane City. I was the one who sealed the Zerg King back then, and now that the Zerg King has broken the seal and is wreaking havoc in Sane City, it is reasonable for me to go and solve this problem." Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated gaze and whispered, "But it's dangerous." "I know, but if I can't get to the bottom of this, I won't be able to eat or sleep in peace." Qin Chuan said in a serious tone, "I have to determine if Zerg is behind this." Chapter 10-19. Sane City used to be as prosperous and lively as it was now. If not for the Zerg King's shrill cries, Sane City would have been no different from a dead city. In space outside Sane City, Qin Chuan looked at Sane City through the porthole with a solemn expression. The damage caused by the Zerg King's rampage on Sane City seemed to be more serious than he had imagined. As far as I know, more than 1 billion people fled Sane City on spaceships on the day the Zerg King wreaked havoc in Sane City. The rest are trapped in Sane City. Wherever the Zerg King has wreaked havoc, there will be no survivors. Lu Zi stood beside Qin Chuan with a solemn expression. Like Qin Chuan, she saw Zerg as an enemy. Now that the Zerg King had wreaked havoc in Sane City and slaughtered innocent people, she naturally could not be in a good mood. How many people are still alive in Sane City? This was a question that Qin Chuan was very concerned about. The more people died because of the Zerg King, the deeper the guilt in his heart. Lu Zi sighed and replied, "Less than half of the people in Sane City are still alive. At least a few billion people have died to the Zerg King's rampage." Hearing Lu Zi's answer, Qin Chuan could not help but clench his fist. A few billion people died in such a short period of time. Who is so crazy as to release the Zerg King? Are the lives of a few billion people so worthless in the eyes of these people? Hearing Qin Chuan's angry words, Lu Zi said helplessly, "There are countless races in the universe, and the humanoid race is just one of them. What other race would care about something like this happening in the sane galaxy, except for the humanoid race?" Lu Zi was no longer the naive girl who had just entered the universe. After becoming a Grand Duke, she had a clearer and more comprehensive understanding of the universe. She also deeply understood the meaning of the saying, "Those who are not of my race must have different intentions." "Grand Duke, Mr. Qin, the spaceship is approaching the starport. Should we land?" Sophie said in a serious tone, "The Insect King is nearby. Once it discovers us, it might be dangerous." "No need to land," Qin Chuan said. "Lin and I will enter Sane City from outer space." By now, Sina City had become a ghost town. No one bothered to follow the rules anymore. Without supervision, Qin Chuan and Lin had 10,000 ways to land in Sina City. Upon hearing Qin Chuan's words, LVZ immediately said, "Isn't it too dangerous for just the two of you to go?" Qin Chuan hesitated for a moment. Then he replied, "Lu Zi, Bai Yu, you two come with us." Qin chose to bring Lu Zi and Bai Yu with him not because he felt that there was more strength in numbers, but because he was worried that the person behind the scenes who released the Zerg King would launch a sneak attack when he and Lin left the spaceship. If Lu Zi or Bai Yu fell into the hands of the person behind the scenes, it would be troublesome. Letting Lu Zi and Bai Yu stay in the spaceship might not be as safe as staying with him. Hearing Qinchuan's words, Lu Zi immediately stopped talking about danger. Her face lit up with joy. She could finally fight side by side with Qinchuan again. Qinchuan's group of 4 left the spaceship and slowly flew toward Sane City in the distance. At their speed, it would take them about 10 minutes to pass through the atmosphere and land in Sane City. 10 minutes was enough for Qinchuan to make some arrangements. Lin, I can deal with the Zerg King myself later. You're mainly responsible for Lu Zi and Bai Yu's safety. Qinchuan said to Lin. If there's any danger you can't deal with, you must leave with Lu Zi and Bai Yu first. Don't worry about me. I have ways to protect myself. If you stay by my side, you'll only become a burden. Hearing Qinchuan's arrangements, Lin nodded gently and replied, I understand. Lu Zi and Bai Yu did not raise any objections. They knew that Qinchuan was telling the truth. In a situation where they could not help Qinchuan, the most important thing they should do was to protect themselves so that Qinchuan would not be distracted by protecting them. 10 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. Qinchuan's group of 4 slowly landed in the air above Sai-Na City. As they stared at the empty city below them and breathed in the air that was filled with the thick stench of blood, the expressions on their faces turned extremely dark. Roar! Yizhen's loud roar came from afar. Then, a huge body rushed over, heading straight for Qinchuan. Qinchuan looked at the Zerg King rushing over with a cold look on his face. He said in a deep voice, Good timing. Qinchuan shouted and immediately took out the bloodthirsty spear. He raised the bloodthirsty spear with his right arm, and with a surge of spiritual energy, he threw the bloodthirsty spear like a javelin at the Zerg King. The bloodthirsty spear shone brightly and gathered the smell of blood in the air. In an instant, the spear turned into a huge blood arrow. It pierced through the sky and hit the Zerg King with an unstoppable momentum. Screech! The bloodthirsty spear pierced through the Zerg King's body, causing it to let out a miserable cry. Its body collapsed, and it died in an instant. Lu Zi stared in shock at the Zerg King that was killed by Qinchuan's spear. She could not help but gasp. The Zerg King that wreaked havoc in Sane City was killed so easily by Qinchuan. How much had Qinchuan's strength soared in just a few months? However, after the shock, Lu Zi felt that it was reasonable. Qinchuan probably would not have appeared here if he did not have absolute confidence. The people hiding in the corners of Sane City looked out in fear when they heard the Zerg King's scream. When they saw the Zerg King's broken body fall from the sky, they could not help but be ecstatic. The Zerg King that wreaked havoc in Sane City for dozens of days was finally dead. The crisis of Sane City was finally over. While the survivors of Sane City were crying out of extreme joy, Qinchuan's face was still dignified. He had no intention of relaxing at all. He looked around and said in a low voice, Come out. Hearing Qinchuan's words, the expressions on the others' faces suddenly became vigilant. There were still other enemies lurking around? Qinchuan saw that no one responded to him. He took a deep breath and said, I just arrived in Sane City, so the Zerg King won't discover me so soon. You summoned the Zerg King here to test my strength, right? Now that you've seen what you wanted to see, come out. As Qinchuan's voice trailed off, a charming laughter suddenly sounded. A girl in a black dress slowly appeared in front of Qinchuan. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.